The college football experience week 11 preview picks and draft episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times the amount of money you enter with their brand new Pick 8. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. Once again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride.
Hey, everybody, Jim McMahon here, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. Week 11 preview, picks, draft, the whole kibosh, whole kabam. I don't know. Everything. All right. I'm making up words over here. That's what we got to do. We're in week 11. We've previewed all other 11 weeks because week 0 counts as week 0. It's not week 1. So go check out all of those. And obviously, I'm previewing 134 teams, 134 episodes, an hour dedicated to every single team in the land. Completely done with the SEC. And just earlier this afternoon, I dropped the Air Force Falcons 2024 season preview. So we're 17 down. We got 117 left as we're banging through these previews team by team. Subscribe to the College Football Experience wherever you get your podcasts. Also check out the Dan Wetzel interview that I just did. Shout out to the great Dan Wetzel for coming on the show. Yeah, check out youtube.com/the college experience. Get on over there, hit that like and subscribe button. Hopefully you're enjoying all this college baseball content going on right now too. Noah B doing great work as the road to Omaha heating up on the College Baseball Experience podcast. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swig at Database Dad, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
And you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, terrorist pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it. Good night.
Look, I took a look at the Big Ten schedule this week. That's the way I feel. I feel a lot like David Thompson. Now, we're not going to bash all these games, but I'll bash a few. It's unavoidable. I am joined by my co-host who happens to be down at an Econo Lodge in the Whale's Vagina in San Diego, California. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, Patty C in the place to be. He's on mute. He's still on mute. But don't worry. Bring it home. There we go. I should have never told him to hit that mute button. I should have known that sandbagging son of a gun. Patty C in the Whale's Vagina. How you doing, pal?
I'm hanging in there, man. It's beautiful down here, loving life. So let's talk some football. I think it's a great week. I don't think there's that much to scoff at here. I think this is a fire week.
Well,
Just give me
1 minute.
Okay.
We are joined by third man in the booth. You see it if you're watching on YouTube. Once again, youtube.com/the college experience. He is the DFS god himself, freshly back from the beach. He's dropping beach episodes. You know, he's building fucking sandcastles. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, home brew making, tobacco road living, the free lock giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's up, guys? You know, I don't think I look tanner. I don't think I look more tan on YouTube. I don't know what happened.
It's true. Something about I never look tan.
Yeah,
I look like fucking powder. No, when I went to South America, I feel like I actually acquired a little bit of a tan, and with that, I probably took 10 years off my life. But I am excited about that, and I'll give you your music.
we'll just call Colby Melanoma Dant from now on.
Yes. Look, we got look, before I dive into stuff, well, I will let me Patty, see, this is what I'm referring to here is we do have a big dose of Big Ten shit going on this weekend on week 11. So mark your calendars. Another week of just a large supply of Big Ten shit coming to your schedule, your weekend. Luckily, the other conferences did pick it up for the Big Ten. But would you guys not agree that we got a strong dose of Big Ten shit this week?
You know, I was giving them a lot of credit last week. Last week, it sounds like they put some of their best games all into week 10, because week 11 for the Big Ten is a little light. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's not the Big Ten's finest week overall. I would say it's a solid week in college football. I'd say there's a lot of good games, but that may be more ACC and SEC. Big Ten, although some of these matchups you're talking about, Michigan, Indiana, that's been played like however many times. Probably.
Yeah, but Indiana won once.
I was gonna say, how many times did Indiana win?
It's 62-10 is the all-time series there.
So what's that? Once every 30 years, Indiana wins.
Yeah, 1 in 7, about
something like that.
Yeah,
Patty was right though. I think he mentioned this last week about the 2 bye weeks this season really affecting things, because in the past there's only 1 bye week. I went and did the math and counted up all the games. Last year, week 11, there was 66 total FBS on FBS games. This year, there's only 50.
That's true. See,
so this week, there's a lot of fire up top, but depth is a concern, because it's hard finding 30 good games when there's only 50 to choose from. And we're talking about MAC games and Conference USA games and, all kinds of G5 games. So it makes sense.
Well, I think that's here to stay, though. I don't think I know Patty was texting us thinking it was the calendar, but from what I understand, I think moving forward, they're all going to have 2 bye weeks because of the extended playoffs.
Well, no, I think that it's what I read was that it was based on the early Labor Day this year, because Labor Day is the 2nd of September, as opposed to, I guess, being it has to fall within it's the first Saturday of September, or first Monday, or is it the second Monday? Is it? I don't know if it's the first or second Monday of it. It seems like if it's the first Monday of September, it's no later than the 7th. So it's not that big of a difference from the second. I know we're boring people to death with this.
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about here. The first Monday, second Monday.
Well, it's definitely not the second Monday, because September 2nd couldn't be the second Monday in the month.
Right.
Either way, look, I've heard they're going to have 2 bye weeks moving forward, is my point. 2 bye weeks for every team.
Okay. That might
one.
be true. Might be true.
So maybe you're right. Maybe I'm right. I don't know.
Shout out to the chat. Connor Johnson saying he's here for the Pac-2 championship. Hell yeah. Looks like he's a Beaver fan. Go Beavs.
Yeah, man. He is. And shout out to him. I know he's heartbroken still about what happened to the Beavs. He was mentioning that on a prior episode. But hey, I'm telling you, I said it on that show and I'll say it on this show. Maybe it's an easier path. Now, I will say I did get some clarity from Dan Wetzel saying that Washington State and Oregon State must get it out right. They're not qualified as a group of 5 in a way. So they must
I was wondering if that was the case. Okay.
Well, if they join the Mountain West, they would be.
Yeah.
But
so they're like Notre Dame, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Independence, pretty much. Yeah. So they have to finish in the top 12, in other words.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen.
It's possible, though. When I look at Washington State's schedule, and knowing their history in Pullman, and knowing how many they get Texas Tech in Pullman, the reason I say Washington State over Oregon State is Washington State returns a lot more. Their whole offensive line, I think, is back. but they get Texas Tech and Pullman, the Mike Leach Bowl. If they win that, and then I think they really can win at Washington, because Washington has 2 players back. There's no one back on that team, and you're catching them now in September, not in the final week. So if they get those 2 wins, and then I think they have to play at Boise later in the year. But I'm saying, like, I could see a path of like potentially
I'd find it
10
hard
or 11 wins.
I'd find it hard to believe that the committee would allow them in with 10 wins. I think they basically have to go undefeated, maybe 11-1, maybe.
Well, we kind of already saw this a few years back when a 9-3 Florida got into the New Year's Six over a 10-2. I believe it was Wazoo.
State. Yeah, when they had Gardner Minshew. Such
Look,
bullshit.
it's not most deserving. I would love to see Wazoo in the playoff for sure, but I just know that they're gonna just add in a bunch of SEC and Big Ten teams that have worse records than a potential. I mean, first off, Wazoo's not going 11-1 or 12-0. Let's be honest. If they did, maybe.
What? I feel like last year they were 5-0 before, or 4-0 before that news about them getting left behind, and then they lost like every game. But I'm just saying, like, with the game being in Pullman, like, I don't think it's that far fetched to think that Washington State could win 10 or 11 games. Am I crazy?
Well, I said 11 or 12.
Well, they don't have do they have a Pac-12 championship? I don't know, but
they're going to play 12 regular season games.
My point is, like, to me, I only think they'll probably be dogs for the Apple Cup. I actually think I'd favor them. I think I would favor them week 3, but like, okay, they're at Boise on September 28th. They'll probably be dogs there. Maybe Fresno. If they split that, I think they could win the rest.
Honestly, I haven't done a deep dive into their schedule.
You ready for this? Home to Portland State, home to Texas Tech, in Seattle for the Apple Cup, week 3. Home to San Jose State, at Boise, bye week, at Fresno, home to Hawaii.
That's a hard first 6 games. Texas Tech, Washington, Boise, and Fresno on the road.
Well, Boise and Fresno are both on the road, but Texas Tech's in Pullman, Washington's in Seattle it's a neutral technically at the Seahawks Stadium, but Washington doesn't have any fucking players, dude. Like, I actually think Washington State will win that game. If I had to pick right now, I would take Washington State to win that game. They almost beat them last year in Seattle. Like, it was they needed with the team that went to the national championship. So I would lean Washington State to be undefeated. Now at Boise, I would say they're dogs. At Fresno, at least they have the bye week before that. I don't know. They could win that. And then home to Hawaii, at San Diego State, bye week, home to Utah State, at New Mexico, at Oregon State, and then home to Wyoming. It's like they might be favored in all those.
It's going to be interesting to see them with not a Pac-12 schedule. I agree, but I would still be surprised if they only lose once or go undefeated. I'd be very surprised.
Depending on how some of the teams they play in there do this season, if Washington surprises us and has a great 10-win season, and then
no way.
that game is a tie.
I think that's impossible. I think that's
probably not. That's why it would be a surprise and maybe impossible. But something that could boost their resume up and maybe get them in with 2 wins, get them into the top 12.
No, Texas Tech could win the Big 12. They could win the Big 12. Yeah.
Maybe 10-2, especially if they have a win over the Big 12 champion. That would almost assure them a spot in the playoff if they go 10-2. Other than
I say pup those breaks with any kind of assurances.
If you beat
the Big Ten and SEC run shit, and they're not going to show any love to Wazoo or Oregon State. Trust me.
It's true.
They're going to expand this thing so fast, though, as I already said. Like, it's the most interesting college football season I can recall, and they're going to expand it so fast because I think I mapped out. I just did my Texas A&M preview yesterday. Go listen to the Texas A&M preview that's out there. They're going to expand it. Here's what I love: is before it was the UCF fan base that didn't have the cachet, even though they represented themselves well on the interwebs, to quote George W. But before it was them or like Houston or TCU or Utah back in the day. Now the way that I was going through the SEC, I think if Texas A&M beats Texas on the final week, this is just one example. I think Texas would be left out for Texas A&M because they'd have the tiebreaker, and the other SEC teams would get in, and Texas wouldn't be playing in the SEC championship game. So you would have one of the largest fan bases completely annoyed at they had a much harder schedule than like 3 of the other SEC teams, and then I thought the same for maybe Penn State, and then you look at it and you're like, and USC could be in that mix of their fan base. They're going to expand it super fast because those fan bases have never been that outraged before, and they're going to be. Twitter's going to be fucking hilarious when that happens. It's going to be like, hey, well, welcome to how life was as a UCF fan. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to make for even more entertaining season in that regard. But I do want to get to a little bit of news before we get out of here, or before we get drafting, I should say. Did you see what SMU just pulled in? So, looking at Sportico's database of public schools, NCAA filings, the most that any school has ever raised in 1 year was $115.4 million in 2022 by Texas A&M. The second to that was Texas and Clemson raised $86 million, right? Well, SMU just said, hi, how you doing, college football? $159 million donated. And we're not even done through the year yet. I mean,
Yeah.
what? The Big 12 is so dumb for not getting them. This is the team that could save the ACC. This is the $159 million
In 1 year. I mean, how much NIL money would that? I mean, how you should start pulling tons of 5-stars with that kind of money, right?
Yes, that's what $44 million more than Texas A&M, who was number 1.
Just on fundraising, though.
Yes, just on fundraising.
Not on the money you're getting from the conference because of the TV contracts and stuff. It's not like
sure, but I'm just saying.
It's nothing to. I mean, it's still very impressive for sure.
Dude, that is fuck you money right there. That is watch out. I think this is going to be the most interesting. Like maybe not this season, maybe over the next couple of years. I think SMU has become must watch TV.
They're a very interesting program to follow. And look, we said that when the news with the ACC, came about, we're like, the ACC kind of, they're like, okay, I guess you can come over. We're like, you know what? That might have been the best move you've made in a very long time. Yeah. So yeah, the Big 12. I mean, they're right in the heart of Big 12 country too. So maybe they whiffed on that. We'll see, but I think the SMU is going to be very interesting to follow over the next 3 to 5 years or so.
Let me ask you this though. Mark, being a shrewd businessman, and I don't know if he's done anything that would ruffle any feathers within the Big 12 ranks just yet, but if he sees SMU as a golden ticket that he needs to get, to save his conference or at least secure his conference, would he probably tell the other teams that would have supposedly it's TCU and Baylor really that have protested most to SMU
and Texas and Oklahoma, but they're gone now.
They're gone now, right?
Yeah.
So with them, potentially could SMU be stolen by the Big 12 potentially? Do you think?
Well, that's a good segue to the next conversation. Is the Big 12 is selling their. It's not a done deal yet, but selling their naming rights. But also, there's 2 things here. They're selling their naming right, considering selling their naming rights, which I think this deal is actually going to happen. But that I love how they want to keep the 12. That's part of the deal. They want to keep the 12.
Right.
You have 16 teams in your conference.
The dumbest part of all of it.
But
there's a little bit of name recognition there.
I guess.
No, there's
not.
I
mean, the Big 10 is keeping the 10.
Yeah, but at least
the Big
like
10 had been around.
Old.
Yeah.
Well, if you get rid of 12, then what are you? What's your new name going to be?
16. Well, but then you're going to expand more, probably, right?
Yeah, ditch the name. Yeah. I mean, just the numbers. That is a dumb concept. Numbers should be done from all conferences, including the Big 10.
The problem is you shouldn't even sell. Yeah, you shouldn't even commit to numbers the way that the world is going right now.
But what's the alternative? What are you going to become?
A name for your conference? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the All-State Conference itself, in the modern context, kind of makes sense. You include teams from all or any state you want.
Well, they're not the only one. Conference USA is also exploring their options, and we might have deals done before the season starts. But another thing is the Big 12 considering private equity investment up to $1 billion for 20% of the conference. I mean, and I will say this one, and I don't know if it's private capital or private equity. I think it might be private capital, and they just put the headline as private equity. But this one is very interesting to me because it kind of gives you a little bit of leeway. You know, if you can stay, it keeps you financially, up in arms with the SEC and Big Ten, and then you can let the dust settle a little bit and see how, whether it's Kansas State or Oklahoma State or Colorado, see how they fare in the in the postseason, and then might be a short-term Band-Aid, but maybe that's what you need is a short-term Band-Aid. I know the ACC might be considering this too, but when I had Dan Wetzel on the show, we were talking about this, and we were thinking that it might keep the Big 12 aggressive in poaching the ACC teams too. If the ACC does not consider doing the same, what do you make of all this shit? It's interesting, right? I mean, Nick, what do you think?
It is very interesting, but I don't completely understand it. I'm probably not the best person to speak on this, and I haven't had a chance to do enough research on it. I know they're pumping in money into the league, but at some point they're going to want a return on their investment and money coming back into the investors. So how does that work?
I see on the tables. This is me reading from, I believe, CBS Sports. On the table is a possible cash infusion of $800 million to $1 billion from Luxembourg-based CVC Capital Partners in exchange for a 15 to 20% stake in the league. A portion of the money would go directly to the 16 conference members, and the partnership would give the conference access to CVC's investment services and clients, not clients is. I don't know what that would mean as far as Big 12 teams are currently earning $31.7 million. And yeah, it would make them even with the SEC, pretty damn close to even.
Well, I just don't understand what, like Nick's saying, and sorry to interrupt, but if their return on investment is kind of already set based on the contract, that they have with these networks, that they are getting $31 million a year because of their negotiated contract.
But that's a short contract though. So if you sign like a 20-year deal or a 10-year deal, or I don't know how long this would be over, but the Big 12 is going to that's their edge on the ACC to me right now is the fact that they renegotiate again.
Yeah.
It's like they do it again in like in a few years, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
they'll probably renegotiate twice before that ACC grant of rights thing is gone. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think all is well if the money keeps on going up.
Why wouldn't it though? With the playoff looming, a 12-team playoff, I think fan interest in the sport and betting on football is a pretty good, it's a pretty smart move in America. You know what I mean?
You would think so, but you know what this means? I think it also means a lot of like international expansion because you would think that college football, the market in America is somewhat saturated. There's only so many college football fans in America, and there's only so many more ones you might bring into the mix. I think they're going to really start looking internationally because there's so many more people that don't like Mexico City, for example. You always mention how big of a city Mexico City is, but I don't think they pay attention to much college football. So I wouldn't be surprised if
Mark's already said that he wants to go into Mexico City.
Well, shout out to Paul in the chat. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma State starts playing a home game in Mexico City or something. Overall, is this good for college football? Probably not, but I'll say it again. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I think we're pretty good at picking games, picking winners, betting against spread, offering advice, and we love college football, but I'd be lying if I told you that if I knew the ins and outs of private investment money being pumped into universities.
Wall Street, Nick.
Those textbooks are a motherfucker, though. Yeah. All right. Look, I don't know what else to talk about besides, I guess, USC and Ole Miss canceled a series. Stupid. Nick had a good joke saying UMass was available for Ole Miss. Les Miles is suing the LSU Tigers. I like that. He didn't appreciate that that they quoted him as saying, "Get the blondes with the big tits," because he also said "hot asses," and they cut that out of that report. So there's that going on. Urban Meyer also says this year's Ohio State's roster is the best college football roster he's ever seen.
Woo!
So
Bold statement.
We'll see about that. But let's jump into this because we got a bunch to. Go listen to our previews. You want the solo team stuff? You go listen to the previews. It's draft time. And here we are. Last week, Nick, you're number 1 here.
How about that?
I'm number 2. Patty C, you're number 3. Where are you taking us to, NC Nick?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think this has probably been the best game of the last decade, the most meaningful, maybe even like the chippiest. Alabama LSU in Baton Rouge. Every year it's of great importance, and this one is no different. And I think LSU gets revenge. I think they win this.
I have been, Bama losing this game too. So.
Thank you. Well, this is a great way to get started. And I haven't even won all my games yet. It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
I love how it's, and I haven't even won all my games yet. Actually, you've lost quite a bit there, Mr. Kelly. But
pretty bold call saying he was gonna win all his games.
Go undefeated.
I'm never gonna lose a game ever again.
Oh man, he wasn't focusing on that. He was focusing on a Southern accent. He was like, if I got to deliver this, so they like me down here in Baton Rouge.
Slip of the tongue.
Yeah. This is a rivalry that goes back to 1895, folks, where LSU won 12-6 back in 1895. Bama does lead the series by 19 games, though. 19 games. This will be the 89th outing between the two. And look, last year LSU, I think, was all tied up with them before Jaden Daniels got injured. The year before, LSU did win on that 2-point conversion play to the tight end there. But the year before that, Bama only won by 6. So for the most part, with the exception of the COVID year when there was no fans, what a great time. That was so great for Bama. They got to go to Baton Rouge with no fans, where they won 55-17. But yeah, Alabama still dominated this series in the past 10 years, though. LSU's only beaten them twice since in the past 12 years.
Yeah, but those games were pretty damn fun. I mean, you had the one where the players were talking to the recruits in the stands and everything, saying, "Come to LSU." You know,
that was the time that LSU got him with Joe Burrow, 46-41.
Yeah, I mean, this was a national championship game. You know, so quickly look at this list. You see any other national championship games on there? I don't think so.
Well, I can tell you this, buddy.
1993. There's kind of a national championship that was in the balance on that game.
And then also, if you're going to bring up that national championship where you talk shit about the Big Ten West all the time, that was a 9-6. What? Oh no, that was 21-0 in the national championship. It was 9-6 in the regular season. So,
two pretty big clunkers there.
Yeah, Patty, see your thoughts on Bama LSU?
Of course, a great pick. Is Bama going to maintain their dominance? I guess the gap is closed with Brian Kelly coming to town, although he wasn't there he only got that one so far.
What? He's 1-1 against 1-1.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Joe Burrow team, you talk about how good Bama's been. Obviously, you don't need to say it, but they only beat the greatest supposed team ever, only beat Alabama by 5 that year. So, look,
but Bama did some patchwork that game.
They did clean it up,
a
but
little
that
bit
game
of a blowout. But yeah,
it wasn't over though until LSU salted the clock away. Alabama, had they made a stop, could have gotten the ball back and would have had a chance to win. So, it's a great game. I think LSU should be considered the favorite here, but it's going to be it's a big question mark. What happens in the post Nick Saban era? So everyone's eyeballs will be on this game.
Yeah, and all these games matter so much more because in one regard, you're like, well, LSU can lose 2 or 3 games and probably still make the playoffs. Well, last year actually they lost 3, but they probably wouldn't have made the playoffs. We were doing the math on this, but in that regard, you say, well, the season's
in one regard, it's not as, there's room for error. You can lose a game or two. But I would argue that, a game like this can get you into the SEC championship potentially, and then you can get a first round bye. So, all right, I'm on the clock for pick 2, and yeah, I mean, you know where I'm going here. I will go to the game from '93, as I can't find my. Here we go. I almost played a rivalry that I love to see on the schedule, especially now that it's a conference game again. But I think you got to play Florida State at Notre Dame. Teams from Florida never in college football hardly ever go to cold weather, so you got to appreciate a November cold game for school in Florida. And then the fact that Florida State was undefeated and won a share in the national championship to me last year. Then you add in Notre Dame. Where are we at with Marcus Freeman? Like, if he loses the opener to A&M and he loses this game, like, it's not like he's done bad. But
I'm still bullish on Freeman. I think he's gonna get there, but he does need to probably start winning some big games before he starts to get a little stigma to him.
They should have beat Ohio State last year, and that was on him. But
10-3
and 10-3 isn't a very bad start at Notre Dame for your professional coaching career. True, yeah, but he was left the keys to a nice thing that the it wasn't like Ty Willingham walking into a much more of a disaster. Sure, he hasn't yet taken them into the next level, but also the program hasn't slipped. So come on,
recruiting is up.
10-3. You lost to Marshall. Yeah, 2 years ago they lost to Marshall and Stanford in the same season, and lost to Louisville last year. I mean, those are teams you don't normally lose to. I feel like if you know
year one growing pains. And guess what? He had a tight end for or a tight ends coach become his offensive coordinator. Now he's got the nation's best. It takes a couple of years to if your years that you're working out the kinks, you're going 10-3 in those years, then you are in good shape moving forward. Especially if you're making improvements with your recruiting, which he has, with your coaching staff, which he has, and he's probably getting better as a coach.
I would just like to know which games did he win? Like, 'cause I think they were favored in all those games. Is there any game that they were favored to win those? Right.
Take a peek back at last year.
It's like the games he was a dog. He's that was Ohio State, which he lost.
I mean, going on the road and putting it on NC State should be given a little bit of love.
They should beat NC State though, right?
They did.
Yeah, they were still a favorite that game. But. Yeah. That's all I'm saying is they're doing what they should do, right? Right. He hasn't taken them to the next level yet. I don't think his seat is hot. I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, I think you're content so far. But yes, do they want to see a breakthrough season? Damn straight they do. Maybe it'll be this year. Yeah. Like if you look last year at Clemson, they were dogs. They lost. At Louisville, they were actually favored and they lost. They were dogs against Ohio State and they lost. So it's like those are probably the only games on the schedule that they were supposed to the two, not the Louisville one, that they were supposed to lose. And they lost to Duke last year. Yeah, they should fourth and 17 or something.
Yeah. Well, and they should have beaten Ohio State. So if you're talking about eye test, then
but the difference is Duke they were like a heavy favorite against Duke.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you shit the bed, sometimes you play better than you're supposed to. Overall, they look pretty good, but you're right, they look about the same level that that Kelly left them at. And so they do need to take a step forward. If you think, I mean, still what Brian Kelly did there if he didn't leave on such bad terms, they would have a statue of Brian Kelly there and they may put one up there yet, but
still, I think the difference is though, is that, I get your point. Like to me, he hasn't won, like he lost at USC the year before, right? He lost to Ohio State. Now he did beat Clemson, but Clemson wasn't as good that year. Right. And that was in South Bend. So, even with that, I still think he needs that big win. But another thing is you have the playoffs. Before Notre Dame would get gifted to the national championship on some bogus years. You know what I mean? When they got waxed by Alabama, they were just like, oh, yeah, we'll put them in.
Put them in the 14 playoff. Now you're gonna have to earn it once you get there. And if you haven't won a big game, and a lot of did Brian Kelly even win? I mean, I know he did all right against USC, but
well,
USC
they could still be
down.
Kind of gifted an invite to the 12-team playoff,
but they don't get. They will, and they will get gifted on that some years, but
they're not getting the bye.
They can never get the bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess, maybe that is good enough for the fan base is to, make the college football playoffs most years. I think that's kind of hard to beat.
Fair.
Yeah.
And one of these years you would think you're bound to just move along.
Right. Now, but Colby, smart move.
What's that?
Smart move playing this one because this one we do have a time at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, prime time under the lights in South Bend. It's a fantastic game.
Yeah, and look, this is a series that does go back. The controversy is still an issue. If you ask our older brother, he's still bothered by this. Obviously in 1993, Notre Dame was host, and that's 100% fair. But
Notre Dame beat Florida State at the end of the year with the same record, and Florida State went to the national championship game instead of Notre Dame.
That's why I've always long lobbied that any of the national championships are bogus for the most part. Like almost every national championship is bogus.
Florida State fans bitching about last year, they don't bring up 93.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
karma takes 30 years to catch up sometimes.
Perhaps some weren't born when that happened, but.
How about this though? Notre Dame's won 3 straight against Florida State.
Ooh.
Can it be 4? Can it be 4 straight?
Well, let me tell you what. This game, both of these teams stand to have pretty good seasons because I think they both have pretty manageable schedules. Notre Dame in particular, and the fact that this is a November matchup, it really seems like it's the same vibe. Yeah, I mean, but it's got the same vibe as that 93 matchup, and it's probably going to push one into the playoff and maybe one out. And look, it was the same thing with the Notre Dame Clemson game that pushed Notre Dame into the playoff a few years back in South Bend, which it was either late October or early November. Either way, this is a great environment for a game. So you got to love it.
Yeah. Paul says Florida State's joining the Big Ten soon. We'll see. They got to get out of some legal mess. But Patty C, you're on the clock. Where you going?
All right. Well, I do think there's a clear top 3 here, and although you put a good one right there, but I'm gonna, you might be right. Actually, you might be right, but I'm gonna go with the SEC game. And I understand fully why you would give me flack for this because the other game is fantastic. But Georgia traveling to Ole Miss will almost certainly have playoff implications, probably potentially SEC championship games implications, depending on if Ole Miss lives up to the expectations.
I was about to say, wait a second here, because we gave what were we talking about where we said they've only won a few times just earlier in the show. This Ole Miss has only beaten Georgia twice, and they don't
play very often though, right?
No, this is 33-12. I thought.
Did I say twice? I meant 12.
Yeah.
But check us out. Since 1997, Ole Miss has only won once, and they've played about. They did play for a long time. How many times is this? 6, 8, 10, 11 and 1 in their last 12 is Georgia.
But now, Ole Miss is so much better the last 3 years under Kiffin than they were previously.
Still, but I almost throw them in the Notre Dame bin until Ole Miss wins a big game. I mean, I guess they got LSU last year, but even with that,
if I'm not mistaken, when we did the Ole Miss preview, I think you had the Rebs winning, right?
I did have this upset. I did.
It's the Georgia spot.
I said this or yeah, it's the spot because they're coming off of.
It's a huge game. I mean, I think Ole Miss, they could put themselves into the playoffs with a win here. Obviously, it depends on what happens before and after this game, but their out of conference schedule is a joke. They have a favorable SEC schedule. Take care of business at home against Georgia, which obviously much easier said than done. But if they can get this somehow, then I think they're in the playoffs.
They played last year and Georgia won 52-17. That's why it doesn't deserve to be the third game.
I didn't have Ole Miss winning this game. You did. I had Georgia winning.
Well, look, it never goes the way you think. I was like, sure. Georgia's going to lose another game. I thought, I was like, they're gonna lose a second game, but or a first game, but Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, it's definitely a top 5 game because they're probably both top 15. But I still think, look, I almost took BYU Utah over Florida State Notre Dame because I truly think I want to watch it more than Florida State Notre Dame because I just think it's. I'll put that and the Egg Bowl in the backyard brawl as, to me, I actually think those rivalries, they hate each other more than the ones that get the, like, Army Navy, Ohio State Michigan, Alabama Auburn. Alabama Auburn maybe is on that level, but BYU, the Holy War, they fucking hate each other, man, and it's just, to me, it's highly underrated nationally.
I agree with that, of course, and I don't fault you for, having that more highly rated. It's certainly a more ferocious rivalry in terms of, fan buy-in and passion. But, I mean, this game, I think, probably has bigger playoff implications. It's going to have a great environment. Ole Miss will absolutely be lit for this. But, again, BYU has a great chance to play spoiler potentially. And if BYU bounces back, then that game also – both teams may have playoff implications at stake, but we'll get to that game in a second. It's my play, right? Yeah. I get to make the play. So look, Ole Miss, look, you said that the year before they upset Alabama, who was number 3 back in 2014, they had lost to Alabama 25-0. Boom. Then they beat them. And then they beat them the next year when Alabama was number 2. So look, teams can change.
But then they'll lose it like Arkansas the next week. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah, Ole Miss
is they just haven't put it together as far as that. Now they've gotten up and beat some big time teams. That's why it is a top 5 game to me. But for me, a lot of people are pushing the narrative. I got one of the magazines. I picked up a couple magazines the other day. They had them number 4 in the nation, and I'm like, yeah, are we ready to put Ole Miss?
You got to earn that a little bit, Ole Miss.
At number 4 in the nation?
Yeah, fair.
And look, maybe they will be. I don't know. I think it's an exciting time if you're an Ole Miss fan because you definitely went out in the portal and you loaded up, and that's why the game is a top 5 game to me. So I'm not going to blast it too much because I had it one spot back. You know what I mean?
They don't come off Texas, Georgia, that game. They come off the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
You're right. You're right.
And they look forward to the Tennessee game the following week. So it is a hell of a sandwich spot that Ole Miss catches them in. Tough slate for Georgia here. That we predicted them 11-1. Starting to get a little second thought about that. 10-2 may be more likely for Georgia.
It's going to be fascinating to watch all this, folks. Look, before we get to NC Nick's second pick, I want to tell you the college football experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8's now live. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex entries. So you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry with more picks to make and extra ways to win. The excitement is higher than ever. And the best part is you can win up to 325 times the amount that you enter. You can now use specials and boost on all flex entries. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Yes, they do have college football action and CFL. It's the summer. CFL action. Hop on over there. Sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back. NC Nick is on the clock.
All right, this is going to be an unpopular opinion on this podcast, but I don't give a shit. BYU and Utah is a fantastic rivalry. I'm sure it is. Oh my God. If I can play the role
You're
of
gonna
Mr.
play this Virginia
East
Tech bullshit
Coast bias, I don't go out of my way to watch that game, and I've caught most of them over the years, but it's not like it's must-see television for me. I'm going to go with Oklahoma at Missouri, the old Big 12 matchup. And look, it's not like these guys haven't played damn near 90 times in their existence, and the game
96.
goes back. There you go. And the game goes back to 1902, if I'm not mistaken. And they played in back-to-back Big 12 championship games in 07 and 08. And it's the first time they're playing in over a decade.
Wait.
And the winner of this game could have a chance at making the college
football
playoff.
Get the fuck out of here. Flag on the play here. All right, look. Since 1984, they've probably played what? Hold on. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 times. Missouri's won twice. Twice.
But the tides have turned. If you don't know, Missouri has been cashing SEC checks for the last decade plus, and Oklahoma has just joined the conference. So Missouri is ready.
See a tide turn.
to compete, especially at home. I think Missouri is going to win. I think Missouri could be in store for a big season.
I'm sorry. This is just this is blasphemy to me. This is not better than the Holy War.
I know this would irritate hipster Colby, but I'm not going just to.
I'm not here to make since 1896, which is
I'm not here
longer
to make
rivalry.
Colby happy, okay?
And Utah,
Patty, what do you think?
Utah's odds to make the playoffs they're favored to win the Big 12. So you want one with national implications? What's the game that probably would cost them the playoffs potentially? It's BYU, an arch rival, beating them. And the hatred is on a different level than Missouri and Oklahoma.
Sure, the hatred with a bunch of people in Utah is on the next level. I agree. I'm not arguing that. But BYU has no hope for a playoff berth. Both
Why
Oklahoma
not?
and
Wait,
Missouri
they can
do.
win the Big 12.
Oh, let me tell you this, Colby. It may be a great passionate rivalry, but the all-time series is 59-32, and Utah's won 9 out of the last 10. That's not exactly a competitive rivalry on the field of late. So,
but BYU won the most recent matchup.
Upset potential would be more likely in Provo, not Salt Lake City.
But the last time they played in Salt Lake City was a 1-score game, dude. The time before that was a 1-point game. The time before that was a 3-point game. The time before that was a 1-point game. Get the fuck out of here. You guys are wrong, and you're fucking terrible. All right, you're terrible at this.
Let me
game,
ask you this:
right?
let's exclude Colby from this conversation for 1 second, Nick. Let's have a non-hipster conversation here. You know, what in your mind makes BYU Utah a special rivalry, or doesn't make it a BYU? Colby, you got a 30-second or 20-second timeout, then you're in.
No, I mean, obviously proximity within the same state, the hatred, the level of intensity. It's a big time rivalry. It is. But I'm just telling you from an East Coast bias guy, which I will never hide from that label. I've lived my whole life on the East Coast. I do have an East Coast bias, and the national media has an East Coast bias. And that's why while I definitely try to watch most BYU Utah games, it's not like I go into the year like, what week is BYU Utah? And if we're being honest, most people that follow college football don't have it on their level that high up. That most of them are more like me and not like Colby.
Well, but I don't care about them. Like most people, those same people don't pay attention to the backyard brawl, which I think is the.
I like that game a lot more. Of course, it's a lot closer to me.
It's the same. It's the fucking same. It's the same level of hatred.
But I'm a lot closer to that game.
If anything,
I know people that have gone to both schools.
If anything, this game is more nationally relevant because Utah's been so fucking good lately, and even BYU, right? Pitt and West Virginia. I mean, Pitt had one 10-win season since then. So, like in the past decade, no. And how about this? You remember that a couple years ago when Dino Babers took Syracuse and won 10 or 11 games? You remember that?
Sure,
yes.
They won. That's probably Missouri's season last year. They're 11-2. They're scraping by Middle Tennessee State, right? I'm not ready to just fucking crown them. Like NC Nick's got them in the national championship over there.
No, I don't.
This is a team that was 6-7 in 2022, 6-7 in 2021, 5-5 in 2020, 2019 6-6. They're an average ass football team that caught lightning in a bottle for 1 year. So take this shit and sell it to someone else. All right. Sell it to someone else. Yeah.
I'll say this. This is the exact rivalry that is the opposite of like the Iron Bowl or the game where people say, oh, it's not gonna knock one of the teams out of the playoff. Both teams will still make the playoffs. This is a game that will put one team in or keep one team out. That both of these teams had been fringe. I mean, both have had undefeated seasons essentially. I think BYU just lost to Coastal that one game on the fly during the COVID or whatever, or else they were in playoff contention. But either way, they've been a 10-win team for a long time under Mendenhall, etc. And Utah has been great. So this game will almost certainly have playoff implications moving forward for at least one of the teams most years. So I do think that the national exposure to this game and the national appreciation of this game is going to be on the rise.
Yeah. And
I would just say, you were saying Missouri might be average. Well, last year BYU was below average. They were 5-7 overall and just 2-7 in the Big 12.
True, but they've been better than Missouri over the past 5-6 years.
I don't know about that.
What are you talking about? They had a 10-win season or something, and their schedules were insane. They would do these independent. This is another thing that makes this game
who had
great.
a 10-win season was Missouri last year.
Yes, but here's another thing that makes it great. It's a conference game because over the past 10 years, they've been playing in different conferences, so the stakes are even better.
Sounds very similar to the game I picked.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this,
Yes.
Colby. We haven't even officially made that pick yet for.
Yeah, that's my next pick. So we're going into both. We're going into both. I'll take and to me, this is a no-brainer to me. Like it's not comparable. The just to me it's like Xavier Cincinnati to me, college basketball. You know, a lot of other basketball rivalries will get the headlines, right? But Xavier Cincinnati, if you know college basketball, you circle that one because you know they fucking hate each other, right?
Yeah.
You circle it and you want to watch it more than almost like even like I'd rather watch Xavier Cincinnati than Purdue Indiana or something. And Purdue Indiana's got a great history and a great rivalry to it, you know, or UCLA Arizona or something, you know. But that's why you want to watch this game is because the fan bases hate each other, and they're what are they like 20
It shows
miles
up
apart?
on TV.
Yeah.
It does show up on TV.
I'll throw you an olive branch. That's why you want to go to the game. Like if I had to go to a game and it was Oklahoma, Missouri, or BYU, Utah, then maybe you could talk me into picking BYU, Utah over it because of that. But on TV, does it show? Yes, it does, but only to a certain degree.
Let me ask you this.
It's not like Missouri's not going to be filled out also.
That's true. It's going to, I mean, I think that's why nationally, fans don't appreciate these games as much, but it does take a little bit of knowledge. I do think, I think that Utah BYU has gotten to some extent the hype it deserves because the media has kind of acknowledged it. If you check out best rivalries list, BYU and Utah sometimes makes it on those. So, but let me ask you this: which is better, the Rednecks from West Virginia and Pittsburgh, or the Steelworkers, whatever you might call them, or the Mormons from Utah? Who's the more aggressive and more hostile fan base?
I want to say Pitt, West Virginia, because alcohol is involved more. But
sober anger is powerful. We've discussed this before.
Either way, the Holy War is, like I said, I think you can argue it better than Florida State Notre Dame because I think Florida State Notre Dame could still be a blowout potentially. Whereas I feel like BYU Utah, for the most part, like I said, you just rattled off a bunch of the. But like the fact that Utah's won, I think 9 of the last 10, but most of these games were fucking insane. 17-16, 24-21, 20-13, 35-28, 20-19, 19-13. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and one of them, I believe BYU blew a 21-0 lead. Right. So these games are wild. They're fucking wild. NC just hasn't been watching. They're up too late. It's too late for him over there. Anyway, Patty C, it's your turn because that was my pick.
I'm dying in this fucking country ass fucked up town.
Sorry. But where are you going, buddy?
Well, I am going to go to a game that you have pretty much next on the list. It makes sense, and I think if Virginia Tech can live up to the hype, and fulfill what their fans are hoping for, then at this point in the schedule, they should have a really good record. And Clemson coming to town is one of the last stops Virginia Tech has to maybe an ACC championship berth. And then even if Virginia Tech, does crap the bed and lose out of conference to Rutgers or maybe the likes of Wake Forest or Vanderbilt rather, as Colby predicts, I think Virginia Tech could still be in play for the ACC championship and therefore the playoff.
Can we let's have a conversation? I know we're going slow right now, but I'm saying Virginia Tech. I was coming into the studio today, and on the TV they had the College Football Show on VSiN, where they're saying the surprise team, their biggest surprise team is Virginia Tech, and I've heard this being pushed left and right. Right? I've heard many people say this. And look, I kind of hope it's true, but I don't understand the basis on what they're doing this at. I look back at the schedule last year. They were 7-6 because they beat a Tulane team without their coach and like 20 players, right? In a game in Maryland where it was all Virginia Tech fans too. And then you look at who they played. They didn't beat one team with a winning record last year. They beat UVA, Boston College, Wake Forest, Pitt, and Old Dominion. Old Dominion was 6 and 7. That was the best team, and not including the bowl win, because the bowl win was a half depleted team. But my point is like, how are we sure? Like, I don't buy it. Like, I understand they return everybody. They should be a good team, but are we really ready to put them in national contention? Like, they could, like, I understand the path, much like Louisville last year. It is there for Virginia Tech. The only difference is Jeff Brom had proved it to me that he was an elite coach. Brent Pry, I'm not there yet, but I'm shocked of how many people are buying into this narrative. Am I crazy, Nick?
No, you're not crazy. I think you should be a little cautious of Virginia Tech when expectations are high. I mean, to put a little stats behind what you were saying, Virginia Tech has the fourth best or fourth highest returning production in the nation, and offensively 91%, which is number one. First, the top most returning production offensively, but 13th most on defense. So there's reason for optimism, yes, but no, I agree. I think they need to pump the brakes and take it one game at a time, because they were just barely an above average team last year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're bringing back all those players, but you still lost to a 4-8 Purdue team at home. You know what I mean? Like, you lost to
early
Marshall.
in the year,
yeah.
Virginia Tech looked like shit, and Pry was almost gone. It was almost a very quick 2 years, but he turned it around. They pulled together some wins. I understand why folks in Blacksburg are excited for this year, but I think they do need to pump the brakes, and they have to prove it to us first. And beating Clemson at home in November would go a long way in doing that. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the games leading up to this, but it is my favorite ACC game. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, and it does go back to the year 1900, where they met in Charlotte. They were doing neutral site games in 1900. And Clemson has a 23-12 all-time lead.
Virginia Tech is a lot closer than they have been to Clemson in a while. It looks like. And yes, I think there's some short-term memory influencing the Tech faithful, scoring 40 points plus in 3 of their last 4 games. But again, the level of competition, that's Boston College, Virginia, and Tulane, who is highly depleted. I think pump the brakes. I'm with you on that. But the schedule lets them. So Blacksburg's going to be electric.
Right. I want to. If you told me right now Virginia Tech's in the playoffs with a bye week, I think that's great for college football. I think it's great for the fans of Blacksburg. But I just don't know that I could just all of a sudden hit a switch and just say, hey, this is a team that got the Rutgers averaged over 7 yards of rush against them last year. You know what I mean? Like,
I think Marshall might have also.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just seems like they're getting a shit ton of hype. Anyway, I think well played in that spot. NC Nick.
So that was my top 6 also. And also Clemson, Virginia Tech was my 6th. So I think there's a very clear top 2 rounds. And this is the point where you can go in kind of any direction that you want to. And I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation. A game that I've been to 2 years ago. I'm going to be there again this year.
It's on there. It's on that sheet.
It's down there a little bit further, but for me, it's also the beach versus the mountains. It's been a real big rivalry around these parts the last 5 years or so. That's App State at Coastal. Sunbelt action Thursday night. I'll be there in person again. I saw Michael Barker there 2 years ago. I hope he's there again. This is a fun game every year for me.
And the all-time series, well, as far as since they've been in the FBS, is 4-3. I think they might have played in the FCS some, but since they've joined the FBS, it's 4-3. It's pretty even, and the games have been pretty fucking wild. If anything, Coastal's won 2 straight, but the guy who pissed heel is gone. He's now pissing pussy up in Raleigh, and I'm talking about Grayson McCall. Coastal App lost by 3 at home a season ago. And then the year before lost by 7 in Conway. All these games have been pretty damn close with the exception of 2019. They've all been pretty solid. Patty, see your thoughts on the beach versus the mountains?
I want to get it pulled up here, but I feel like this has probably been 2 of the top maybe both of the top two teams in the East up until, eligible teams. Obviously, JMU is going to be ahead of both of them in the standings every year. But eligible teams, the top two teams for quite a while in this conference in the Sun Belt. So, yeah, I think it's still a relevant game. You're playing for second place in the East and a fun game.
The all-time lead is 7-3, by the way. This goes back to 2005 when they first played, but Coastal's won 3 of 4. 3 of 4. It's easy to see that tide turn.
Hello.
So look, Sean, and that's the whole Sean Clark era, pretty much. I feel
like.
It's easy to see a tide turn.
Love this game. I think it's well played. Now there's another game on at that same very night that I think you could argue has the better teams playing this year, but we'll see. We'll see.
Dude, that's the only bad thing is that both those games are fantastic and they're at the same time on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Move on to Wednesday. Come on.
Yeah.
Tell you what, in terms of being the Group of 5 representative, we think App State's on the short list, right, of potential teams.
I put Coastal too.
We had 12. I think that we identified Colby. Just in a quick review of it. App State. I don't think losing to Clemson on the road early in the season particularly hurts their chances.
If they lose,
if they lose. But assuming they do, then if App State can beat Liberty, that's probably one of the only losable games on their schedule if they handle business. Maybe ECU. Maybe Colby's right that ECU gives them a hard time. But if they beat Liberty, then I think App State's in the driver's seat. And then Coastal's one of the last tests on the road for them to, maybe not be that team. Now, obviously, a Mountain West team could be challenging them, but a 12-1 Sun Belt champion App State has a pretty good chance of representing the Group of 5, I think. So this is a must-watch Thursday night game, definitely.
All these games become so much more meaningful, even the other game going on Thursday night. But yeah, it's well played. I like it. And it makes sense. Now it jumps over to me. And I'll say this. It's tricky because you're like, will Billy Napier be coaching at Florida? I don't think so. Do I think Washington's going to be any good this year? I actually think Washington could be a lot like TCU and go 5-7. I think it's very possible. So I will take you to Colorado Springs, where I think this really could be. I actually think the stakes might even, if I had to bet which stakes would be higher at week 11, Fresno State Air Force or App State Coastal, I think Fresno Air Force will be, right? Just because I think there's a little bit of uncertainty with Coastal and App State also. Ever since they got Sean Clark's doing solid with them, but they lose a couple games they shouldn't normally.
True.
So whereas Troy Calhoun's won 40 games the past 3 seasons, if you throw out the COVID year, because they had some crazy regulations where they couldn't tackle, and then you add in Jeff Tedford and Fresno State bringing back a ton. I think the entire offensive line is back, and then Mikey Keene year 2 in his system. Fresno State at Air Force, guys, I think is a look. This is why the 12-team playoff is way better. A game like this before, I don't think I would have drafted it this high because I thought, back then you're thinking, oh, well, maybe it's a rematch of the Mountain West Championship or something, but there was not as much meaning to it. Now this game becomes gigantic. I mean, you pull up Air Force's schedule. I actually think, and I know I just did the Air Force preview and my guy Rick Baum was on the show. Shout out to Rick. And he's saying, man, they lost a lot. And he's like, I think we're somewhere around 7-5, but it depends who you talk to, because I know that Phil Steele's bullish on them. He thinks they're a team that's playing for the Mountain West Championship, I believe. So it's going to be 2 winning teams for sure, just like App State Coastal. Nick, your thoughts on Fresno Air Force?
Yeah, I think you could probably argue that it's 2 of the top 3 favorites in the Mountain West. I think those 2 in Boise would probably be my top 3 favorites in the conference. So therefore, it's a very meaningful game because the Mountain West is probably the top of the G5 conferences. I wish it was on a weekday. That would help. But it's still a very good game.
And it's got more bounce to the ounce now. But Patty C, your thoughts on Fresno at Air Force?
Well, we knew Air Force kind of struggled when Larrier got hurt last year, but prior to that, I believe they came into they were like 9-0, right? And then Fresno had a similar situation, right, with Keene getting hurt.
Keene. Yeah.
So I mean, both of these teams, if they're able to stay healthy, obviously, like Nick said, I think the Mountain West is obviously the number 5 conference. Sun Belt, probably not even that close in terms of quality, but I would say a strong second. So whoever wins this game is going to be in great position for the playoff. I do like the contrast of styles. Last 2 years, 21st in passing for Fresno, number 2 in rushing for Air Force. The year before that, 27 and number 1. So, you get to air it out with Jeff Tedford and the ground and pound with Air Force. It's just fun,
I could see this Fresno likes to they pass it a little bit more. They're actually more balanced than I feel like a lot of more air raid teams, but they still like to throw the ball. It's going to be tricky in Colorado Springs around this time. It's going to be cold weather. I think it might favor the Falcons.
What is this? Anyway. It's November 9th. Yeah, getting there.
Yeah. It makes for an interesting game, and I think major implications potentially on the line. NC Nick, no, you already said your comments. Patty C, you're on the clock. Where are you taking us?
All right, let's just play it because it needs to be played. We're talking about the defending national champion or national runner-up, Washington, going to State College to play Penn State. Look, it's just 2 very good teams, and I think our assumption that Washington is going to fall off a cliff, I think there is something to that. You lose all your players and your coach, things could go wrong. However, Jed Fish did have a great season last year, and maybe he's the type of guy that can inherit a roster, plug and play with some of his guys that he brought in, and Washington hasn't fallen off that much. And if that's the case, I mean, Washington could conceivably come in and give Penn State a hard time.
Well, the first matchup was 103 years ago, so you got that on your side. But I'll say this, man: Penn State under James Franklin, they can lose to anybody at home. You know what I mean? Like, what was it? Illinois got them. Like, even though I think that this is a tough environment, and I think Washington's not going to be great. Maybe Washington, but this is something where they might be getting better as the season goes along, like both first-year coaches. Maybe we can get an upset here with Will Rogers State Park. Nick, your thoughts on Washington, Penn State?
No, I mean, I like it. It needs to be played here, and I would actually lump it together with my next pick, which I think I'm on the clock, right?
Go ahead and pick it. Let's go.
Florida and Texas. And they're similar games because both of the road teams, while they're big college football institutions, we don't think that highly of them this year. And the 2 home teams, Texas and Penn State, we do. But still, I mean, look at these 4 teams. I mean, just name brand alone, these are big games, and they belong to be like a top 10. Exactly. So I kind of group Florida at Texas and Washington at Penn State together. I kind of wish that the favorite was on the road. Then we might see like a home dog and an upset. But still, I mean, these are games that a lot of people are going to be tuning into just because these teams have been at the top of college football for a long time.
I mean, I think they're correctly played. The reason why I didn't want to play the Florida Texas is like if Napier's fired, I could see Texas winning by 40. You know what I mean? Like if they quit. Now the Washington one, I think they're going to be buying into Fish with each week. So like I think that's a much more. They still could get blown out though.
I think at this point, I think people are tuning in for these games to at least check it out and see how they're doing. And some of the other games that we might start to play, people won't even be tuning into at all. I mean, for rightfully or wrongfully, people are going to watch Florida, Texas, and Washington, Penn State.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
Look, I like it. I like it play there. That's fair. That's fair.
Florida and Texas were in the national championship, or one of the 2 was in the national championship. I feel like 4 times in a 6-year period or so, from 2006 down to 2010, or maybe even earlier. Because what was it? USC 2004. No. Texas versus USC in 2005. Florida versus Ohio State 2006. Florida versus Oklahoma in 2008, and then Texas versus Alabama in 2009. So it's about 15 years too late, or else this would have been a national championship. But either way, Texas is back, it seems like, and Florida, they're able to keep it close with their talent. And I think that Texas is the type of team that when they're faced with a team with similar talent, they don't have the killer instinct. Maybe it's that country club environment they got, but when they're body man to man with a similarly talented team, Texas can lose these games.
I think the problem is Florida's living on the other side. You know, Florida's had 5 losing seasons in the past 10 years.
That's wild.
Stunning.
Yeah. But yeah, correctly played there. All right, look, before it gets to my pick, I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. Rhythm's predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help you drive you to better AI betting decisions. Jesus, it's a tough read, man. And they switch it. They switch it often here. Claim your free 7-day trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. I feel like that was like Dumb and Dumber when he's like, the. That's the. Where are we at here? We're back, and it's my pick, and I'm sick of playing these filthy games. I'm sorry. I don't know if Duke's there yet. Iowa State at Kansas is my play, but damn it, I hate that this is not on campus. I still think it's too legit. What are they, like the 3rd and 4th ranked teams to win the Big 12?
Preseason? Yeah.
Yeah. Iowa State at Kansas will be my play. Now it is, you can shoot shots in this one because like, I hate a game off campus, but they're renovating that stadium for whatever reasons, and yeah, I feel like it's still a game that I do think for sure both these teams will be bowling.
Arrowhead Stadium is a good stadium, though. It's not.
That's true. That
being
is true.
Played at Miami Park or wherever it is.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Arrowhead's a classic, but and this does go back to the 1800s, and Kansas only has a 7-game lead. Iowa State's been getting closer and closer. All right. Can Nick, your thoughts on this one? I know you had another one ranked higher, probably.
No, actually, this is my 10th ranked one, so it actually slipped one spot, I think, because these two teams could, push for a Big 12 championship berth. I think both teams are good quality teams. It definitely belongs to be played here, so I have no problem with it.
Let me ask you this. Should there be more of a cultural hatred associated with this game? Because, you got Farmageddon, Kansas State, Iowa State, both the state schools, kind of humble pie, and that's fun. But usually the in-state, out-of-state, but the in-state dynamic between the rich school, versus the state school is where you have the rich guy, poor guy, like Texas versus Texas A&M. But Kansas is definitely the polished program of the Big 12 over the years, at least from a basketball standpoint. Iowa State, I do think is a humble team. So do you think they're gunning for them, even though Kansas doesn't have that reputation in football?
I think the problem here is that both teams were very bad for a long time and didn't care about football that much, right?
Yeah. For a long time. I mean, Iowa State was awful, but
so was Kansas.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is that dynamic, but it could be there.
I think Kansas has like a better, because they were relevant somewhat.
Yeah, Gale Sayers, John Riggins and stuff, right?
When we started watching with June Henley and stuff, they were average to like bowl. Yeah. Whereas Iowa State was dog shit for a while there. But anyway, all right, that's my draft pick. Goes back to you, Patty C.
Okay. Well, there are a couple fun games on here. I just had one, but you know what? I'm gonna throw a screwball at you, and it was on Colby's shit list, Big Ten shit list, but I'm intrigued by this game for some reason. We're talking about UCLA at Iowa.
No, isn't it Iowa at UCLA? Did I get?
Oh no, it is Iowa at UCLA. Yeah. So that actually makes it a competitive game.
And it's Friday night.
Friday night saved this game because let me tell you, I had zero interest in watching this before they put it on but there's a bunch of games on that Friday.
We should go to this one.
Oh, man, I think UCLA is going to be awful this year.
Don't be a little sissy.
That game just doesn't really do much for me. I'll be honest. I didn't have this like.
Plus, he might not be allowed in.
That's true.
No,
his picture might still be hanging up outside saying, "Do not let this man enter."
I will say, Patty C's got this too. This is the Ronnie Harmon game, right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is where he shaved points back in like 80. What was it? 86. They haven't played since then.
This might be the most visible point shaving situation
of all time
we've ever seen in college football. How many times did he fumble in that game?
Oh, it was like 3, and then he dropped the game-winning touchdown. It's like wide open, just like that. It's like he didn't want to catch it. But I don't know, Nick, your thoughts on this one?
To be honest with you, when realignment happened and we saw like some of the new matchups, this one wasn't on the top of my list. But for a Friday night game, look, it's the only. No, actually, there's one other P4 game Friday night, but there's only 2 weekday P4 games, so I think I'll be tuning in for some of this.
Well, let me sell it better. I think Iowa could be a playoff team this year. You look at their schedule, and you say, okay, with exception to the Ohio State game, I think they're going to be favored in every game. Maybe the Minnesota game they won't be favored. So the schedule is this: home to Illinois State, home to Iowa State, which is Cyhawk. That could go. Iowa State won the last time in Kinnick, but Iowa will be favored by like 3 or 2.5 or something. Then they're home to Troy. Then they're at Minnesota. They get a bye week. Then they're at Ohio State. Then they're home to Washington. Then they're at Michigan State. Then they're home to Northwestern. Home to Wisconsin. At UCLA.
There's some tough games in there.
Which games are those?
I mean, at Minnesota is not a gimme. Would you say it was a home against Wisconsin or at Wisconsin?
Home against Wisconsin.
Okay, so that's more winnable. You said Washington was in there?
Yeah, but that's home. Washington on October 12th. I don't think that's a dangerous game.
It's just not a gimme though. Those aren't gimme games.
I'd say it's still dangerous. So the way Iowa wins, I mean, there's a small margin for error. So yeah, I mean,
I think of Will Rogers dropping back. He's good for 3 picks in that game. The Minnesota one, I'll say, but like Minnesota won last year on some bullshit. But before that, I would have won like 7 straight. So like, yes, I'd say that's the scariest game on the schedule. But at the same time, my point is I wouldn't be shocked if Iowa would be favored against Minnesota. Would you?
No, not at all.
So my point is where would they be dogs? At Ohio State's the only clear one to me where they're a dog.
Right. I think if you're looking for losses, you look at road trips, and this is one of them. This could be
that's to me. And right now we could be talking. Let's say Iowa is 7 or 8-1 coming into this game. This could be one that could potentially keep them out the playoffs. Because I don't think UCLA will have a winning record.
SEC, we've noted, has had a hard time going into Big Ten country or a Pac-12 country, which obviously no longer exists, but it's still a long road trip. I don't think it's the Pac-12 mystique that made this hard. I think it's the long road trip and the different environment. And I will say that I was more intrigued with this game going to being played in Iowa, which I thought it was, just because I thought it would be more funny to see the Beach Boys of UCLA going into Iowa. We've talked about how we want to see that so many times, but now that this becomes a potentially competitive game, I mean, is Iowa ready for a team that is going to be playing in nice weather, presumably, and able to built to throw the ball around all over the field? Probably something they haven't seen as much in the Big Ten West over the years. I don't know.
Iowa's 0-6 against UCLA in LA.
Ooh, hello.
So, there you go. All right. NC Naked jumps back to you.
I will play the game that you alluded to. Both of these universities are about within 15 minutes of me. I'm a Duke fan. Last year, they beat NC State in Durham. It was a coaching masterpiece by Mike Elko, winning with their backup quarterback. It's going to be tougher at Raleigh.
That game was classic NC State, dude.
It was. It was a game that they probably should have won. They had the better team. They had more talent, and they still lost it. So revenge is going to be on their mind. And again, they have the better team. They should win this game. At home, they probably will, but it's definitely a game I'm looking forward to.
100-year-old rivalry. Duke's won 3 of the last 4. The year NC State got them was the COVID year, but 3 of the last 4. Before that, NC State had won like 10 in a row or something. But Duke still leads the series by 5.
It's also one of the games where they were in the Atlantic and Coastal, so they play like every 6 or 7 years for a while. So I'm glad that it's back on a more consistent, basis. So, yep.
Yeah. Patty, see your thoughts on Duke at NC State.
It is crazy. Every time we do like a little deep dive on Duke and I see them leading this series by 5 games, and you look back at it, Duke used to be a nasty program, apparently. So, it's interesting to see them have a couple coaches with success. Maybe Duke, it took Baylor probably. Now Baylor, I consider a solid program. Maybe I'm a few years behind on that with Duke. And Duke NC State could be a pretty good rivalry going forward if we, especially if they're playing consistently again. They're very close. We value Duke, North Carolina. I don't know if we value Wake versus NC State, but I don't know. Is there something about Duke and NC State in particular that should be rivalry-ish?
Well, Duke and NC State both hate UNC more than they hate each other. So it's always like a second-tier rivalry. It's never like the main one. But still, still with just like the proximity alone. They don't like each other also.
How far apart are
they? 20 miles.
Yeah, that should be a rivalry.
Between 1933 to 1963, they played every single year. Well, they played every year for longer than that, but NC State only won once in 46. Duke dominated that rivalry. So that's why they still are clinging to that lead. But no, I like it. I think it's well played here, and I think it's a game that hopefully, like I said, got rid of the Coastal and the Atlantic. I want to see this on the schedule every year, preferably. So let's go. I'm curious how Duke will be this year, though.
Same here.
I think they're like one of the. There's like, to me, like out of Power Fives, there's like 5 or 6 mystery teams, like Baylor. I put Duke and Baylor in almost the same bin, where I'm like, they could be horrible, they could be good.
Texas Tech in that same area.
Yeah, I think I trust Texas Tech a little more than those two, but they're still probably right there. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, like the play. It jumps over to old Dundee, and I'm taking you to Lubbock. Because Coach Prime in Lubbock, fans are going to be ready for this one. Like, this is going to be a fun watch, I feel like, because it's like when he had to go to Pullman last year. Like, Lubbock doesn't normally get, I guess they got Texas and stuff in there, but this is a series they're all knotted up. And I do think they might have implications on the Big 12 championship potentially. The series goes back to the early 1960s. Last time they played, Texas Tech did win by 3. But Colorado was one of the teams that had Mike Leach's number when he was in Lubbock. Colorado, I think, got him more times than not. But yeah, I think just Coach Prime, it's still must-watch TV. I know it's a year later. Whether they're horrible, like if they're horrible, people are going to love to watch that misery. And if they're good, obviously, and I think they're going to be like a 7-8 win team this year. Maybe even potentially flirting with the Big 12 championship. So I think it's a game. And I think Texas Tech, could make the Big 12 championship too. Nick, your thoughts?
I had a tough time ranking the Big 12 games. There's a couple other ones right around here. Like, I think I had Oklahoma State TCU at a notch above this one, just because I saw a Big 12 favorite going on the road, which might be a tricky road spot.
But isn't it more hilarious when you see Coach Prime going into Lubbock, Texas, where this place is going to be just insane? Like, I feel like that element makes it more hilarious. Than
what about Coach Prime going into Lubbock? Just because Lubbock is
Lubbock's like the Morgantown of Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like it's just that element to me.
West Texas,
is the humor to me of like,
right. No, I agree with that. And trust me, I wasn't sold like on Oklahoma State TCU. Like, I'm not gonna argue you like my pick was better. You could have went either way. So I look, Coach Prime is he's still must watch TV in year 2.
When you say Lubbock is like the Morgantown of Texas, do you mean the salt of the earth. Probably don't appreciate a loudmouth coach too much.
Yeah, but they're just
racist as shit.
Well, no, they're just a rowdy fan base. Like when I picture Lubbock, the edge it has against TCU or Baylor to me is like I picture just more debauchery. You know what I mean? Like their fans are just a little bit more ready to go.
Right. Like fine dining is Chili's. You know?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Varsity Blues crowd there.
So that's also uniform porn, right?
A little bit.
A lot of black.
Yeah.
A lot of black going on there.
Anyway, that's my play. It jumps back to UNC Nick. Where are you taking us? All right. No, it jumps to you, Patty C. I'm sorry. Patty C on the clock.
All righty. So let's see. There's probably a couple better games out there that I'm not seeing right off the bat, but I'm going to take us to a game that one team I expect to have a decent season, and they lost this game in heartbreaking fashion last year. So we're going to see if they can exact revenge on the road. We're going to Atlanta, where the Hurricanes will visit the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech.
This game was so funny last year. This is just so funny. Man, the series is all tied up too. The series is it's just like the Texas Tech Colorado. They're dead even,
which is surprising.
Well, not when you consider Georgia Tech's won 3 of the last 5. All right, go Jackets. 3 of the last 5 they've won, and even the ones they lost. I mean, I guess one of them they got blown out, but the other one was a 3-point loss. Hey, I mean, this game, dude, they've been some good games in this. When you like lately, for a game for something that doesn't really catch my radar. Now, obviously, last year's game definitely caught my radar, but I'm saying 23-20 in 23. In 21 was 33-30. In 19 it was 28-21. In 18 it was 27-21. In 17 it was 25-24. So like these games are all fucking insane. Yeah, I mean, I actually enjoy this too. I like Miami, Atlanta too, like you said, Patty C. I like that element to it. Nick, your thoughts, ACC Nick?
No, I like it also. I'm a little kind of high on Georgia Tech this year, and with Haynes King year 2, and they won at Miami last year, so there's a revenge angle, and also like we're all looking to see like where is this hype train of Miami? Where are they going to lose some games? And like we were saying earlier with who was it? Iowa. You look, the first thing you want to do is look at potential road spots, and there was like earlier, there was the 2 back-to-back, there was a bye week in between, but at Cal, at Louisville, tough little stretch. Well, at Georgia Tech mixed in between 3 home games, that's a sneaky little spot too. And because one of the reasons why is that all the players they bought that are new to the ACC, new to Miami, they don't give a shit about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's not on their radar.
They don't know the difference between Georgia Tech and Georgia Southern.
Exactly. So I think it's a tricky game. I think you better watch out for the Yellow Jackets.
I like it. I like this game played here. I think. I mean, there was not. Was that the best? Was that the funniest game of the whole entire season last year?
It had to be up there.
I was just watching the highlights of that. It's like fumble, 30-yard pass, 40-yard pass.
Well, I was hoping for a field goal to get it to overtime. I wasn't even thinking they had enough time to actually score a touchdown. And then when they threw the ball, I was like, "What are they doing? The clock's going to go out on them, potentially." What a game! What a hilarious game! Yeah, I think that's fairly played there. All right, folks, if you're listening to this on the audio side, make sure you check out the B side. If you're on YouTube, stay put. But this is the College Football Experience Week 11 preview, picks, and draft. Check out the B side where we cover the rest of the games of our top 30 on the College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. All right, we are back on the College Football Experience in the middle of our draft. NC Nick, Patty C with me here. YouTube.com/the College Experience. Hop on over, hit that like and subscribe button as we preview every single week of the season. Also, all 134 teams with a solo podcast for each and every team in the land. We just talked Miami, Georgia Tech. We got NC Nick back on the clock.
I'll take you to that other Big 12 game I mentioned a little bit ago. Oklahoma State at TCU. Oklahoma State clearly the better team right now, but TCU's won 4 of the last 6. They just barely beat them on their run to the college football playoffs and the national championship 2 years ago. Didn't play last year, but also same thing. Beat a dead horse. These top teams were looking at where could they lose, and you look towards the road, and they could potentially stumble at TCU here.
Yeah, they could. And
Oklahoma State isn't like that much better. Than
anyone in the conference.
Exactly. They could drop pretty much any road game.
Yeah, you're right, and that makes it compelling. And that right, and then you have TCU. 16 months ago, played for the national championship, won a playoff game to get there. And although I'm a skeptic, I never thought that year they would go to the national championship. In fact, I think I was on the under on 7.5 wins that year that they went to the national championship. So what do I know about TCU? I enjoy this. I like their stadium there. And I enjoy the color schemes here too. Patty, see your thoughts on Oklahoma State TCU.
TCU did just kind of, I don't know. Do you think they took a step down uniform wise by taking the diamonds off the
they did
a little bit.
Yeah. What were they thinking there?
Yeah. Should have kept a little unique look. TCU doesn't need a classic look. They can be a little Oregon-ish, so you might as well ride with what you got. But sometimes you got to change it up. So that's what they did. I'm worried a little bit about the. How did Josh Hoover? Is he a new starter at quarterback for them, or
he started? I think the final 2 weeks of the season. But they also brought in Ken Seals from Vanderbilt. I don't know. TCU's. Let me throw TCU into that mystery team bin too this year.
I would agree. Yeah. 4 returning starters on the 4 newcomers. Sorry, on the offensive line.
And their best defensive player transferred to Oklahoma. So
those things don't suggest a potent offense, but we'll see if he can get it going again like he did a couple years ago. Drawing a blank on their coach's name right now.
Sonny Dykes.
Sonny Dykes. Yep. Yeah. So I do think that they're a threat to win this game. I think Oklahoma State needs to be scared going into Fort Worth, but I would favor Oklahoma State, obviously. But I believe TCU, have they bounced back from bad years before and had solid seasons?
Well, they went to the national. Last time they were 5-7. The following year they went to the national championship.
Yeah, 5-7. In 2016 they were 6-7, went 11-3 the next year. In 2013 they were 4-8, went 12-1 the next year. So
I think it's different with a different coaching staff, though. I don't know how much you can look into that.
Probably not, but my point is, especially in a conference where everyone has a similar level of talent, all it takes is a few tweaks for you to all of a sudden be a good team again. So I think Oklahoma State, we shouldn't probably look at last year and dismiss TCU as a contender or certainly a threat. This could have a lot of meaning. If you're talking about the quality of these two programs over the past few years, then this would be a very low play for this game, TCU and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, fair. All right, it goes to Dundee, and finally we could just take me home. All right, just take me fucking home.
There it is.
All right, I know you guys are laughing at this, but I do think East Carolina. I think they were better than their record a season ago. If you watch the games, I think the best way to tell that is the games, not by looking at the box score. But what I love about this schedule we got coming up. I think we did a great job in the portal, attacking and getting in a lot. I think we're a more talented team this year than a year ago, especially at the quarterback position. But also, yes, we have the non-con games with App State and Liberty that seemed very challenging, which they are. But what I love is UTSA has to come to Greenville. Florida Atlantic has to come to Greenville. Within the conference, I think those are the 2 toughest opponents we have. The third one would be at Army, right? Which we have to play, but we don't play Memphis. We don't play South Florida. We don't play Tulane. ECU is a contender. All right. I'm telling you, they're a fucking contender this year. And if you watch the App State game last year. I know the wheels fell off, but ECU, third quarter, was winning that game. Same with the Marshall one. You see 31-13. I've said this on the show many times. It was like 2 straight pick sixes. So Marshall like takes the lead, and then 2 straight pick sixes in the final 5 minutes makes it look like this fucking gigantic blowout when it was a much closer game than that. Even the SMU game, very similar too. So I do think they're closer to turning this corner than people realize. And then I think the schedule is very favorable for the Pirates. So they're hosting Florida Atlantic. I think it's a must-win game. It's a weeknight game. NC Nick, your thoughts?
On the surface, this is 2-10 versus 4-8 from last year. But I would, tell people not to pay too much attention to last year's records, because I do think both of these programs are going to make big jumps this year. Both are going to go bowling. And if you're bowling in the AAC, that means you're possible contenders towards the top of the league. So I like it. Unfortunately, going to the other game in person, I won't be able to watch this one. But I think if you're a fan of college football, you're very happy with the 2 Thursday night games. Maybe you got YouTube TV. You can do that split box. Maybe you got 2 TVs. Watch them both. Should be a lot of fun.
Dude, I'm telling you, if ECU can just go 1-1 against App State and Liberty.
That's a big ask.
I mean, we should have beat App State last year, man. I
guess it's not that big of an ask.
It's not about should have beat them because you were up in the third quarter. Play all 4 quarters, buddy.
Yeah, but that was in Boone. This is in G Vegas.
No, what don't say you should have beat them?
Okay, well, come to G Vegas and get beat like you always have done every time you come there, you fucking losers. All right. So, and the Flamin' Libs were not scared. Jamie Chadwell, you got rid of your mullet because you went up to fucking Falwell country. You jerking off in the corner, you fucking loser. All right. Are you letting someone else have sex with your wife? Huh? You fucking. Anyway,
the ECU is coming out hard right now.
Yeah, it is.
All right, bring it on. I can't wait to beat these bums. All right. My point is though, is I'll be honest. This is the best AAC schedule we've had in like 10 years, as far as like within the conference. Obviously, App State and Liberty are not in the AAC. It's a favorable fucking schedule, man. It's a very favorable schedule. Now, obviously, you can still lose to UTSA and FAU and Biff Poggi's Biff Poggi. You know what I mean? So it's possible, but I like our schedule. I like our chances this year. Patty C, any other thoughts on FAU, ECU?
I mean, you're talking about the second most popular game of a 2-game slate in the Carolinas here. Of course, I'm going to give you a little flack. Talk about viewership. Only the good folks in North Carolina and South Carolina would be watching either of these games, and all eyes are going to be focused.
Florida. Boca Raton, the old folks home.
The home folks home might be watching a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I think this is a fun game, and I do expect ECU to be a lot better. I mean, I think 7-5, 8-5. Losing Ehlers, who I disrespected greatly, had a bigger impact on ECU than obviously anyone thought it would. But
and they got your boy Jake Garcia.
I don't know if that means it's going to be a big improvement at the quarterback position, but it can't get a lot worse.
Look, it's an 8 p.m. kick at the old folks' home. The pickleball tournament will just be concluding. They'll be able to, get themselves in front of the TV.
Or the Pictionary tournament. Dude, ECU, and if Mike Houston squanders with this schedule, Skip Holtz is out there. That's all I'm saying. And he's dominating. He's dominating. Bring him home.
To get back to college football.
Bring him home, baby. Bring him home. All right. It jumps back to you, Patty C. Where are you taking us?
I am going to take us to a game that we circled as a potential rivalry game. It obviously did not deliver in year 1 because Cincinnati was so bad. But West Virginia did go 9-4 last year. They do have potential to win the Big 12 just like everyone else. Cincinnati is a team that Colby routinely writes off, but I think they could improve. It can't get much worse than it was last year for them.
It is a rivalry. They have a rivalry page. They've played for 100 years. So
really?
Yeah. They have a rivalry page on Wikipedia.
West Virginia at Cincinnati. The Bob Huggins Bowl. Look, Nippert isn't an easy place to play. As Oklahoma found out, even when Oklahoma was a pretty good team last year, only won by 14 points. So I don't know what time the kick is, but if it's at night, yikes. Look out, West Virginia.
And look, last season, well, this is basketball. Okay, last season, West Virginia beat them 42-21. But the year prior, or the meeting prior in 2011, when they were in the Big East, they used to be in the conference. They played each other every year in a row from 2002 to 2011. So there's that, and they did play a stretch there in the 80s. Yeah, look. It's all right. I am excited about the future of this. When I look at new rivalries that, like, obviously they have a Wikipedia page. They did play, 103 years ago.
Yeah, but they've only played 21 times ever. So they have a Wikipedia page.
They do. I don't know who the fuck started it, but dude, this with Bob Huggins thing too, the Huggins Bowl, I like it, and the fact that they should be rivals. This is one that makes sense on the Big 12. And this is one that, once again, failure for the Big 12 not ending the season with this game. This is what they should end the season with.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So your mark, call 1-800-PICK Dundee. You might know business a little bit, but you don't know college football. Damn it! All right, the Holy War should end the season too. By the way, for while we're stating this, Holy War should end the season. Nick, your thoughts on Dub v Cincy?
I was gonna play it if Patty didn't. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a rivalry yet, but on paper, it makes a lot of sense for it to be one moving forward. I hope they play every year. I hope they can, get that going. And maybe when we're doing this show a decade from now, it'll become a fun rivalry that we can get behind, and it'll move up, instead of being the 20th, maybe it'll be the top 10 game or something. Because it does make a lot of sense geographically. I mean, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons.
And where are you at with Skyline Chili?
I don't know if I've ever had it.
All right.
I've never been to Cincinnati. I've been to a lot of Ohio, but never Cincinnati.
What's the real reasoning there, huh? Bob Huggins comments? I'm joking. Anyway, next up, I'm on the clock, and all right. We're supposed to build meaningful games.
Am I on the clock or you?
Oh wait, I thought you played that one. Okay, my bad. You are on the clock.
Son of a bitch. No, I think here is where I take you to one of the Pac-2 games. I guess the more potential meaningful game will be Utah State at Wazoo, although it might not be the better game. I'm not sure if Utah State can hang, but Utah State is always a solid program. There's always talent going through Logan. And it's a fun little matchup here with Wazoo, a quasi Mountain West member.
Yeah, I mean, Utah State has been bowling. I guess they had the COVID year they were bad, but they were bowling the past 3 years. But if you take out the COVID year, they've bowled 6 straight years. So
Utah State?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think this will be an evenly matched game?
I give Wazoo the edge, especially in Pullman. But I think Utah State's a solid team that will be a bowl team again. I do. I expect them to be bowling again, which means it's a decent game right there. Wish this was on a weeknight game. All right. Or a weeknight slot.
Yeah.
But I still think this could be interesting. Like I said, Washington State, I think that schedule is favorable for them. So there's that. Patty C, your thoughts?
Wait, I just was about to switch on the light since it looks like it's going black here in the room. But yeah, I mean, Utah State, Washington State, it's one of those games. Utah State, if I'm being honest, is like fringe radar. And this might be my East Coast bias, but for as long as and as much history as Washington State has, playing decent Mountain West competition, or even like the likes of Utah, which they have like 100+ year rivalry, 100 matchups. They aren't on my radar. However, I do think that they have been a good program, and with Washington State coming in, this is the kind of game that Washington State needs to be, wary of. That might not be on their radar. That would be phenomenal if Utah State came in and upset them. But I think at this point, we're trying to make something. We're trying to sell games because we're running out of steam in terms of what's easily identifiable as an awesome aspect of any of these games.
Fair. But I still think it's a good game. I think he's playing it in the correct spot. Mountain West football is where my heart's at, so I'm not going to complain about that. All right. We are at how many picks? What pick are we on, Patty?
We are at number 20 right now.
Okay, well, I talked a lot of shit about this conference, but I find this game quite hilarious. Actually, my next two plays will be like this. If you don't, guys, have you guys seen Syracuse's schedule?
Oh, that's a good pick. That's the one I was going to go with.
Honestly, have you seen it? Like,
it's pretty nice.
Well, considering the talent they brought in, if you're not paying attention, like doing the Texas A&M preview last night with my guy Jay Arnold, who's really close, used to play defensive line for Texas A&M. He's like, "Hey man, Syracuse got a good guy off our D line, and they got a bunch of Georgia transfers. They got Kyle Honda McCord there coming in, like." With this schedule, you remember they did it a couple years ago when Babers had 10 wins. You know what I mean? Like this is a schedule that I like. It really sets up nice for them. First off, the non-con is Ohio to open the season. Ohio got completely destroyed in the portal, so I don't think that's a winnable game for Ohio. Holy Cross, UNLV at UNLV, which is random. That's probably their hardest one. And then UConn at the Carrier Dome. But the Orange Men that's a favorable non-con. And then you look at the in-conference schedule. I'm going to say this is kind of Virginia Tech-like. So it wouldn't be that crazy to take a future on Syracuse to actually play in the ACC championship, because you look at the conference schedule: home to Georgia Tech, home to Stanford. Okay, then they have the couple non-con games. Then they're at NC State. Now they'll lose at NC State, I think, but NC State's NC State. You know what I mean? Like NC State will lose a game they're not supposed to, but let's say they lose that. Then they get a bye week. They're at Pitt. That stadium's never full. Then they're home to Virginia Tech, winnable. At Boston College, winnable. At Cal, winnable. And then they get another non-con game against UConn, but then they're home to Miami, and Miami is known to quit on seasons. Dude, it's
a phenomenal schedule.
Whatever, there's not Clemson or Florida State on your ACC
or Louisville.
Happy.
Yeah, or North Carolina. Arguably,
this is basically as easy as you could possibly make your schedule.
I think you have to add Syracuse to your list of complete wild cards.
Yeah, they could make the ACC championship game, which would be hilarious.
You want to talk about Fran Brown's, stock rising fast.
It's a perfect setup for this, man. And at Boston College could be a gigantic game come November 9th. And it is a historic game. They're old Big East foes. So you add that to the mix. That's what I'm playing. NC Nick, your thoughts? I know it's ACC football.
Barely. I mean, I usually don't get too excited for this matchup, but you've sold me on it, on why I think we need to pay attention.
It's a rivalry game too. Wikipedia tells us that.
There you go. And there's not much else meat on the bone. So sign me up.
What is the all-time series here? 23-33 in Syracuse's favor over Boston College.
No, the 34 now, because the last
34.
season. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but over the past 10 or so years, pretty even. Yeah, I don't know. Who do you think is the better team coming into the season? Honestly,
Syracuse.
You think Syracuse is better than Boston College?
Agreed.
You don't think my guy O'Brien? You have an O'Brien? I mean, this could be the upset that
this could be. Syracuse definitely could lose this game. I just think Syracuse's roster is better than Boston College right now, in my opinion.
I mean, run down this schedule and give me the record coming into this game. We said hosting Ohio. Ohio was good last year, like 10-3, 11-3.
They're gonna fuck up Ohio. They're
gonna go through the schedule again.
Oh yeah, let's not. We talked enough about this game. Either way, I like it. Northeast football in November, fun stuff.
That's a great schedule. Yeah. Okay. So it jumps to you, Petty C.
And that was the one I was gonna grab. So looking around, I mean, there's potential FCS games that might be worth playing at this point. But I am gonna go to oh boy. Let's go. Let's keep it basic here. Let's go Michigan at Indiana. I mean, this game sucks. This game does suck. But look, Indiana is due for a win. And if I don't know, man, it's just Big Ten football. You got state flagships at two football-loving states going at it, and the fact that it's in Indiana, maybe Michigan is. What's Michigan's schedule coming into this game? Is there a letdown or a look ahead that could be in play here?
Indiana's won once since 1988, and that was the COVID year.
Although they got screwed really badly.
I know.
Harbaugh's first or second year.
Yeah, that was the what year was that? Maybe
16 or 17.
17, I think.
They should have beaten them. That was ridiculous.
They have a bye week after this too, so there's not really a look ahead.
Well, who do they have before? Who does Michigan have before?
Oregon.
Okay, so let down Central potentially. What about Indiana?
This game makes me fall asleep, dude.
This is going to be a high noon kickoff, right? This is going to be
Michigan has Michigan State and Oregon the previous 2 weeks, so the letdown factor could actually be real.
This is going to be like on the ESPN2. It's a good game to take a nap to.
And guess what? Indiana has a bye week before this game.
Oh man, the stars are aligned.
Let's go. Let's go. Signetti talked that shit at halftime of the basketball game. Says we want Michigan, we want Ohio State. Make a statement and win this game.
I'll tell you what, Signetti, everyone wanted to hate him when he left and started talking all that trash. That made me love him that much more. I'm a huge Signetti fan, even though he left. Go Signetti. Yeah. Make Indiana a hateable team, please. That would be awesome.
Look, I mean, I'm not going to shit on it too much because it's not like this is like loaded slate right now, but NC Nick, where are you taking us?
All right, weekday Nick in the house. Friday night, I'm not going to take you to Cal Wake Forest because I find that game very boring. I will take you to the American. Rice at Memphis. EJ Warner transferring over to the Owls. You know, Rice
funny that you're selling Rice Memphis over Cal Wake Forest is like the same as Rice Memphis to me, but I guess a little regionality with Houston Memphis there.
I guess, but I think Rice has been a decent team the last couple of years. Maybe they can surprise Memphis and make a game out of this.
I mean, again, we're grasping here, but does Memphis have anything that could be let down Central here? I know that Memphis is probably in a lot of people's minds the favorite to go to the Group of Five playoffs, but I do think or take that Group of Five playoff spot. You probably can't afford 2 losses, and you might not be able to afford 1 loss as the Group.
Last year, Memphis beat Navy by 4 points. They beat North Texas by 3 points. They beat Charlotte in overtime. All right. So it's not like Memphis is this juggernaut just going to steamroll all their American opponents. There's going to be some close games. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of them. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this game, but I'm saying is that we got a chance for a ball game Friday night.
Memphis coming off a road trip to UTSA. So maybe they're a little tired from that road trip. Have to come home and defend their home turf. This game is in Memphis though, right?
Yeah, it's at Memphis.
It's tough. We're in a tough spot in this slate. Let's go.
Well, I'm taking you to look. I laid out the path for Boston College, right? I mean, not for Boston College, for Syracuse as they played Boston College, right? I laid out that path for you. Now I'm going to take it one further. I'm going to lay out the path for this boring ass football game. But my point is it's boring as fuck right now, but it could potentially have major implications. Minnesota heads to Piscataway.
Oh, not one I would have had you playing here.
Hear me out here. They got rid of the Big Ten West. I find this would be so fucking funny if Rutgers ends up playing in the fucking Big Ten championship. Because hear me out. Hear me out. First off, they beat Virginia Tech last year and averaged over 7 yards a carry. They play at Lane, but you can't tell me that game's not winnable when you average over 7 yards a carry a year ago, right? Their non-con is Howard, Akron, at Virginia Tech. That's their non-con. They could be 3-0 there, right? Then they get Washington in the first month of Jed Fish's tenure, which I think is they're going to beat Washington on Friday, September 27th, right? They're at Nebraska, losing team from a year ago. They're hosting Wisconsin, which I think is a winnable game. They're hosting UCLA, new coach. Right? They're at USC. Okay, they'll lose that game. Then they get a bye week. They're hosting PJ Fleck so they get a bye week in Minnesota, which is, they can beat Minnesota. I think they beat them a year ago. Then they're at Maryland. Then they're home to Illinois, and they're at Michigan State. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Oregon.
They don't play Penn State.
This is the greatest. They're going to play in the Big Ten championship. It's going to be the funniest. Everyone's like, we finally got rid of the Big Ten West. And then you're going to have the team that should have been in the Big Ten West the way they played.
Well, and look at their schedule. They have 4 old Big Ten West opponents. The only teams they play from the Big Ten East are Michigan State and Maryland, and they play 3 of the 4 newcomers. So now, I mean, they're not going to play the Big Ten championship game, but they could have a sneaky good season.
They could though, man. Well, like, I don't think like with the way that, obviously Michigan and Ohio State play each other. Ohio State and Penn State play each other. Oregon and Penn State play each other. Oregon and Michigan play each other. USC and Michigan play each other. You know what I mean? Like the carnage there could create a team with two or 3 losses to get
unbalanced conference scheduling is a real problem, and this is a prime example of it because their Big Ten schedule is pretty damn easy.
Dude,
they missed the 4 best teams.
Tell me this wouldn't be the greatest situation as a fuck you to the TV execs. If we end up getting Ohio State Rutgers in the Big Ten championship,
and it's 7-7 or something,
and it's just like they did all this to create better matchups, and you end up with Ohio State Rutgers in the Big Ten championship, that would be fucking hilarious. Anyway, Patty C, that's my play. What do you think of it?
Well, let me throw this at you, okay? Back in 2001, when Schiano took over, it took him 6 years before they went 11-2. Right, but in year 5 they were 7-5, and year 4 they were 4-7, year 5 7-5, year 6 11-2. 2 years ago 4-8, last year 7-6. I mean, the trend is he looks like he's 1 year ahead of where he was, when he first took over at Rutgers 20 years ago. So he's on the path.
Please let this happen.
Don't write off the Golden Guido.
Please let this happen. Folks, I want to tell you the college football experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8's now live. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex entries so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. And the best part is you can win up to 325 times your original amount that you enter. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries as well. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code SGP or TCESGPN.
Real quick,
what's that?
Schiano and Fleck, where do you have them in the coaching ranks respectively? Approximately.
I gotta have Fleck higher than him.
But like nationally, top 20, top 15, top 10.
No, definitely not top 10.
Top 25.
What?
Yeah.
I
would say in the 30s probably. 20s, high 20s, early 30s maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
It's not that I was saying they were top 10. I'm just
10.
throwing it out there, trying to get an idea.
All right.
Patty C, I see you're in the chat and you're a Rice Al fan here, huh?
Well, we have an imposter.
The real Patty C is in the chat.
Yes, let's go. Where the hell are we at here? I think Patty C's on the clock. Where are you taking us?
A couple games that maybe we've overlooked here. I'm going to take us to a game that, is a little bit of a trap, I think. UCF, we've talked about, has a pretty easy, pretty favorable schedule, I think. And they are in potential. They are a sleeper in play for the Big 12 title game appearance. But going to the desert, and especially all the way across country from Orlando to Tucson, or Tempe rather, that's a long trip, and the desert can get tricky. So I don't know if they're going to be ready for that, and maybe Arizona State bites them.
That's true. They've never won in Tempe.
Have they ever played there?
Yes, in 2002 they lost 46-13. So
they also lost their in the bowl game you were at, right?
That's
against
true.
LSU.
That wasn't at Sun Devil Stadium though. That was at that filthy toaster oven stadium.
Well, they say it's a dry heat.
I actually do think this is a scary game for UCF.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a very scary game for UCF, and I think Dillingham's got the program going in the right direction. He's got to get some key wins. This could be one of them. Nick, UCF, Arizona State?
No, I think it's a very sneaky road trip. I think not only distance-wise, but, going to the desert, Arizona State might not be having a very good season. They get up for this game to maybe spoil something special for Central Florida. The very Golden Knights better watch out because I think it is sneaky.
All right. And see, Nick, it jumps back to you.
Shame on us. We haven't mentioned that this week is the return of Maction. Tuesday and Wednesday, Maction. And we got to pick one of those games. They don't give us the best 4 games, but the best of the bunch, if you ask me, happens
Kalamazoo, right?
Wednesday night at Waldo Stadium in Kalamazoo, Northern Illinois.
Get your liquor pitchers. Get your liquor pitchers.
Western Michigan. I like Lance Taylor year one. I mean, Western Michigan was just 4-8, but I think he brought in talent, and I think they looked better. They've kind of passed the eye test in some of those games. I think Western Michigan is going to be better this year. And look, Northern Illinois was in the MAC championship game, 3 years ago? So the round amount of touchdown is still doing things on the sidelines for them. I think it's a solid game Wednesday night.
You know who leads the all-time series? Take a guess.
Northern.
Western by 5.
Oh.
But Northern's won 2 straight.
Okay.
So this is a series that goes all the way back to 1950. Gotta love it. Patty C. Thomas Hammock is who you wanted JMU to hire and didn't work out for him.
That's my dude.
What, by the way, when they started playing each other, Western Michigan, all the way to 82, won every game but one. In 75, Northern Illinois caught them. But that's why they're still clinging to this lead, I think. Your thoughts on this game, Patty?
Let me tell you what. Just because it's on TV and it's the only thing on TV does not make it an interesting game. I have told you before that I struggle.
Hater.
I struggle with MAC football. It's one that I need to watch more of to gain an appreciation. But basically, you're just watching 2 football teams play. It's going to be cold weather.
Not true. Western Michigan has an undefeated regular season in the past decade. Northern Illinois has beaten the shit out of some major schools. They've won at Nebraska twice. They've won at Alabama. They've won at Maryland. They've won at Georgia Tech.
Well, both of them, like any year in the Big Ten or in the MAC with any school, have the potential to rise up and have a really good year. So I think it's wait and see with this before I pass judgment. But, from a distance, what are we looking at? What were their combined records last year? I can't see. I think it was 4-6 for Western Michigan.
4-8
or 4-8. I can't see. And should have made everything black. But neither of these teams was great last year. But it does have its slot alone to itself. So Northern Illinois 7-6. I mean, a little bit of a sleeper. Let's be honest.
I mean, I happen to love the MAC. You sandbagging son of a bitch.
I think we should hear from the real Patty C in the chat, and not the imposter Patty C on YouTube right now. Who's up next?
I think the MAC is awesome.
I think that's Colby D up next, right?
It is me, and I am taking you. Wait, no, it's Nick. It's Nick.
No,
I just took that game.
Yeah, I just took that game.
Oh, my bad. What did I think Patty C did? I will take you. So now you're just looking for games where you're just the storylines, right?
Yeah.
And the storyline is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at Johnny Red Floyd Stadium because weeknight game.
I like it.
And the Flamin' Libs of Liberty are going to be playing for that New Year's 6 game. We know that, right? I feel like that's a safe bet.
This isn't weeknight
contentions. It's not. This is Saturday.
Saturday.
Son of a bitch, but I'm still taking it because Derek Mason by week 11 will kind of know this roster, and every game we're going to be putting Liberty on because we're going to see if they're going to be that team that gets in. So going to Johnny Red Floyd Stadium, I'm going to be drinking Johnny Red, watching this one. Been to that beautiful stadium there, and I think Liberty should be. They're going to be double-digit favorites in this game, I imagine, but every game there's more and more pressure to it. So maybe Middle Tennessee can be that team to take down the Flamin' Libs.
Well, especially if Liberty has, gotten through the one or two tough games on their schedule at this point, which I think the only one at this point would have been App State, correct? If
ECU.
ECU, okay. If they're able to get through those two juggernauts, then yeah, I mean, especially if Liberty is close in the second half in some of these games, all of a sudden they become super. You definitely flip on Liberty to see if they lose their playoff spot. So I think Middle Tennessee is the type of team that could pull that upset. So maybe in the second half, this becomes an interesting game.
NC Nick?
Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah.
No,
good talk.
I think if it was a weekday, I think you'd have me. I think it's tough. I think it's a solid game, and you're right. Is there upset potential? There is. But on a Saturday with some of these big time matchups, it's going to be hard to dedicate too much time to this one.
Oh, this will make a TV if they're undefeated or, one loss, I think.
I like it.
All right. It jumps back to you, Patty C. But before we do that, I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by Rhythm. Yes, if you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an initiative user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. At this point, it's psychological. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right. Where are we, Patty C? Where are you taking us? How many picks? Where are we at?
I've got 2 left. You guys have 1 left. I am going to go to a game that is SEC country. You might think it's, boring. You might think it's going to be a blowout. You're probably right. But Mississippi State does have to go to Knoxville to play Tennessee. So I
do like the fact that Levy is Josh Heupel's former OC, and kind of Heupel's
there's an angle.
Heupel's kind of the guy that brought him up. He was like a high school coach, I believe, before that. So I like that angle.
Yeah,
I mean, about it.
Again, like we said, it reminds me of when Rich Rod at Arizona was playing Oregon, and Oregon was, still in the national championship contention pictures at that time with Chip Kelly. You run a similar system, you know how to stop it a little better. You know the ins and outs of it. So maybe Mississippi State is particularly well suited to stop that, especially if Tennessee's not, fully paying attention to them.
And Jeff Lebby, we right after the spring game, they were asking him about this game and his chances, and he says he likes his chances to win this game. And this is a clip from it.
Because I understand how the bastard thinks. I taught him. Now I own one.
So, I thought it was the other way around with Heupel, but Levy's saying he taught him everything. I don't know. It should be fascinating to watch. Nick, your thoughts on Hail State going into Neyland?
That's the only angle. I think Mississippi State is going to be one of the worst 2 teams in the SEC this year. To go at Tennessee is a tall task. I don't expect this one to be close, but I do like that angle there.
All right. It jumps over to you, NC Nick, for your final pick.
I'll take it back to the Pac-2. I mean, this is basically, we've never seen this experiment before. It's basically like if 2 ACC teams were dropped in the Sun Belt. Let's see how they do. I'm curious if Oregon State and Washington are just going to win all the games against Mountain West, or if it's going to be more competitive than some might think. So I'll take San Jose State at Oregon State.
I'll tell you this, and I'm excited. I'm going to Mountain West Media Day in a couple weeks here. And I'm excited about those new coaches joining the conference. Obviously, I've made my case about Sean Lewis at San Diego State, which I think is going to instantly make them much more entertaining to San Diego and get the fans behind them, and they'll be a fun watch. But then Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico, and then Niumatalolo at San Jose State.
And that makes me want to ask, who is the better coach? Sorry to cut you off, but Brent Brennan or Ken Niumatalolo?
Well, I'm a big fan of Brent Brennan, but I think Ken Niumatalolo is a great coach too. So, but he's running the run and shoot here. He's basically been studying June Jones' stuff, and they're going to be running the run and shoot. I am intrigued. I'll put it like this. And I think you want to talk about strengthening the Mountain West. When you add in, I like the Jeff Choate hire at Nevada. And I think Salvell will pick up where Craig Bowl left off at Wyoming. You have a lot of new coaches. But when you add those to the mix, even Boise's coaches technically is his first full year, Spencer Danielson. But that's and Danielson's the one I guess I'm questioning the most in a way. But man, I think that it really ups this conference. I don't know necessarily about this year, but I think moving forward. And I'm fascinated by watching this game. So I think it's correctly played. I think Oregon State, obviously they're replacing everybody. So I favor Oregon State still, but not by much, because San Jose State, I think Brennan did a great job of evaluating talent. You've seen it by the players that hit the portal that start in the SEC or get drafted in the NFL. So I think he does a good job on bringing in talent. So I don't know. Patty C, San Jose State at Oregon State?
No, like we said, San Jose State definitely deserved to be in the conference championship game last year. They were screwed, and UNLV was given the spot in the conference championship. Mountain West conference championship is no small potatoes, and obviously Oregon State was very good throughout last year. Now they got destroyed, but that makes San Jose State a threat to win this game even on the road. That would be a huge win for San Jose State. I'll be watching. I mean, it might be on TV number 5, but it'll be on the radar somewhere.
I feel like the Mountain West has a leg up on the rest of the Group of 5 coaching front. Like, like just the fact you got, I think Norvell's going to get it going at Colorado State this year. And then you have Niumatalolo, Mendenhall, Sean Lewis, Troy Calhoun, Barry Odom did great in his first year at UNLV. I like the Choate hire. He was great at Montana State. I just think they really have the ball rolling from a coaching point of view. Anyway, let's go to my final pick. I am taking you. Welcome to the Rock. As much as I want to take Mendenhall against Sean Lewis in San Diego at the Snapper, I'm taking you to the Rock because I think Marshall Southern Miss is a rivalry that should happen. It's not a rivalry, but I just enjoy both fan bases. I enjoy it. To me, this is like, I'll be honest, this is other than Coastal and App, this is the best Sun Belt game. Besides that, and I enjoy both schools, and I enjoy both. I think they're both great for college football. I'll put it like that. So Marshall at Southern Miss, sign me up. Nick, your thoughts?
No, I like it. I think it's probably the second best Sun Belt game of the weekend. Hopefully we get to the point where both programs are consistently better. Marshall's had a couple good years recently. Southern Miss has not quite as much. So I think this game and this rivalry even goes up if they can have a little bit more success on the field. But I definitely like the game.
Yeah, it was either this or Virginia Pitt, but that half-empty stadium, I was like, at least they packed the Rock.
There we go.
So
Will Hall at Southern Miss, 3-9, 7-6. Looked like he was getting it going in the right direction. Then 3-9 last year. Maybe it's because he didn't have Frank Gore Jr. at quarterback. I don't know.
Huge year for him because he's on the hot seat, and Southern Miss is one where I would wonder where they could go after to hire someone. But I will say it's a huge year for him because I think if it doesn't work out, he could get canned. I like they brought in the kid from Florida State, the back quarterback who played in the ACC championship. No, they brought in Rodermaker, not the ACC championship, the Florida game, the Florida game. Yeah, I like it.
Rodermaker had pretty good stats last year. In fact, he had a better quarterback rating than the starter, who again,
Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I mean, could they get better? The thing about this is there a school out there more so than Southern Miss that screams like, bring in a coach that got in trouble before?
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, Southern Miss should go after Urban Meyer. Bring him back or someone like that. But, I think they have a great stadium. I rank them as the number 1 stadium in the Sun Belt. So great home environment. Should be a fun game.
Your last pick, Patty C, where you going? Last pick of the draft.
Well, I'll tell you what. This game wouldn't have been on my radar before, but recent comments have made it especially interesting for me.
Ball State? Ball State.
We're talking about Navy going to South Florida, and specifically the angle that makes this game interesting to me was Alex Galesh's comments that, we can't have guys with shorter than 34-inch arms or whatever it is, and he's Mr. Pro measurables, et cetera, and obviously the problem with Navy is they can't even recruit players that have pro measurables, at a lot of positions because those guys can't fit on a Navy ship. You can't have a 6'7", 350 guy at Navy, And
they're dead even all the time, 2-2.
2-2. I mean, Navy's got to go down to Tampa. They could do it though. That's Pirates of the Caribbean water. The Navy cut their teeth down there. I think they go down there and hopefully give Alex Galesh a lesson in what it means to do more with less.
How quickly he turned on USF. I don't understand. I don't get it.
It disgusts me. It's the antithesis of what, you would hope a coach would say in terms of you want him to go out and encourage guys to compete. And he's sitting there like, you don't even deserve a spot on the roster. You have no chance to compete. I won't even take you.
Didn't you say they're going to go to a New Year's 6 or something?
I said 10 wins 3 times in 6 seasons. And I still think he might be right. I might be right on that because he is a good coach. He runs that cheat code offense. Now, does that offense have limitations against very good teams? Yes. I didn't say 11 or 12 wins at any point, but
fair.
I don't know. That makes it fun. I want Navy to upset USF.
Fair. Okay, now let's get to our Lou Holtz what the fuck game of the week, followed by our FCS game of the week. But first, we do our Lou Holtz game of the week.
Well, I don't get
the game that makes no sense.
7-6-5.
NC Nick.
I'm gonna take you to the game I mentioned earlier, Cal Wake Forest. I'm sorry,
it's nationally televised.
Yeah, it's only 2 hours down the road from me. I mean, I should be excited about an ACC game Friday night, but this game just doesn't do much for me. Am I wrong here, guys?
I'm stunned that weeknight Nick would take this game.
That's the surprise. Is I actually thought this would get drafted because of the weeknight angle.
Yeah,
but
I don't. This doesn't. I don't know. Wake Forest doesn't excite me this year at all.
It's fair.
Maybe that's right where he wants you.
Yeah,
that's true.
The old Troy Calhoun. Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, yeah, I think that's a solid one. And where's my?
Well, I don't get rain man cold, but they're counting down 7-6-5.
I feel like we play this team every time. Temple at Tulane. Look,
that game sucks.
Just Temple doesn't they need to join the MAC like UMass. All right, and just play UMass and Buffalo, and I'm like, okay, those games make sense. It just doesn't do anything for me. Temple at Tulane. Patty C, does it make any sense to you?
No, it's like Philly versus New Orleans. I mean, in terms of you can't find two more opposite fan bases, that's kind of an angle that makes it interesting, but no, not so much.
All right.
Plus the quality of teams. Temple is just going to go down there and get annihilated by Tulane.
Yeah. Well, Temple needs to get their shit together, right? You see what SMU is doing, Temple? Get some of that Cosby money. All right, let's go.
Well, I don't get rain man cold, but they're counting down 7-6-5.
Patty, see where you're taking us.
Well, it's funny because I kind of sold one of these two teams in a similar game last week as a top 30 game, but this week I am telling you it's a WTF game. Maryland going to Oregon. I mean, if this game was in College Park, then it might be interesting.
They're gonna get fucking destroyed.
They're gonna lose by 55, and no one will be watching this after a quarter and a half.
The game sucks.
Yeah,
it's just
awful.
a fucking horrible game. All right, now FCS. NC Nick, you're on the clock. Where are you taking us FCS wise?
This was kind of a tough one, and I'm gonna go maybe a little off the radar. I don't even see your board. South Carolina. These two teams are not very far apart. I'm going to take you to Wofford Furman, and we know Furman's a very good program, but Wofford last year Wofford was 0-9, and then they beat Furman and they beat the Citadel the last 2 games.
Took care of business.
Completely shocked Furman. Furman was like 9-1. Wofford's like 1-9, and they shocked them. So give me a little battle of the private schools.
Hey, I like it. Sean Watson's Wofford's head coach. He was the offensive coordinator at Colorado when they put up 62 on Nebraska. Let's go Terriers. Yeah, I'm okay with that one. A little in-state battle in the SoCon. Love SoCon action. My FCS game of the week. I really think this week it's weird. It has some encouraging games, but I think the game that stands out to me the most is Sacramento State at Montana State, because both teams are playoff teams, and Sac State whooped Stanford's ass last year on the farm. Montana State has a chance to get Bronco Mendenhall in week 0. Both could be FCS playoff teams here. So in Bozeman, a little pass happy Sacramento team in Bozeman in November. Get the dude. You see that? You see what I tweeted out? I shared that tweet, or I retweeted that high school football practice June 17th in the snow in Montana, June 17th. You think these Hornets are going to be ready? Maybe this is going to be a blowout, but it's 2 playoff teams, Sac State at Montana State. That's my play. Patty C, what are you doing here?
Well, let's go Hornets in that game, obviously. Let's say a similar game in terms of 2 8-win teams that had, I guess, playoff aspirations. I don't know. I'll say your guys' FCS knowledge is incredible. Nick, for you to be able to pull out Furman versus Wofford and have that angle, incredible. But I'm going to go Drake and St. Thomas, Minnesota. Both 8-win teams. I believe they were the top 2 teams in their division. I need to double check that. But Drake finished first in the Pioneer League, and St. Thomas was second. So, this could have league title implications here. And St. Thomas, they're in new squad here. And then
Iowa, Minnesota action.
Yeah, Iowa, Minnesota. Yeah. It's like
10,000 lakes.
They played for the pig in the Big Ten, right? Florida Rosedale. I think this is Florida Rosedale Junior game.
I like it. All right, folks, that's our show. We'll be back next week with week 12, but make sure you check out all the college football previews for every single team in the land. We just wrapped the SEC already into the Mountain West. Also, check out the Dan Wetzel interview I did on the College Football Experience. Also, check out the FCS College Football Experience and the Stadium Heads podcast, myself and Michael Barker, talking college football stadiums and why college football is the greatest thing to hit planet Earth. Give Patty C a follow on Twitter at PattyC831. NC Nick's on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. And also check out It's Summer, CFL Gambling Podcast. All right, Sports Gambling Podcast coming up next. Check them out. Until next time, folks, this is the College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Shoot.